Yeah.
Right.
That's it. There we go. Right, show is nearly over. Let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. Telegraph, 5 years of record taxes. The Express, reckless Rachel tanks economy by killing growth. Guardian, Reeves accused of balancing books at expense of the poor. The Sun, Prince of Bales. The Times, Reeves squeezed by Trump. And the Mail, deluded. That is hopefully it for the budget, the spring budget. Bye-bye.
I thought you meant for the show.
That's it for tonight's show. Thank you to my guests, Steve and Nick. I'm going to be back tomorrow night, 11 p.m. with Nick, and we are thrilled to be joined by the team player that is Lewis Schaefer. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, then stay tuned for breakfast and have a wonderful day.
You'll definitely get the price of all the...
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Whilst in the south it's going to stay fine for a little while yet, further north we do have some wet weather pushing its way in. That's because there's a front which has already started to make its way into the far northwest of Scotland, but it's going to continue to edge southeastwards as we go through tonight and into tomorrow. So we're going to see some rain spreading across much of Scotland and also Northern Ireland. That rain could be quite heavy, quite persistent across western parts of Scotland in particular, a bit drier further east. Meanwhile, across the bulk of England and Wales, staying largely dry with some clear skies, especially towards the southeast. And here we could see temperatures taking a little bit of a drop, so there may be a touch of frost in some prone rural spots. And a few pockets of mist and fog are possible as well. But across Scotland, away from the far north, where it may be quite bright for a time, for many parts, it is going to be a wet picture first thing. Some persistent rain could be a bit heavy, so it could cause some spray on the roads. Also pretty grey and a bit damp for some parts of Northern Ireland too. Some drizzly rain perhaps first thing across some parts of the far north of England and maybe western parts of Wales, particularly towards Snowdonia. But otherwise across England and Wales, once any mist and fog does clear away, it is going to be a bright picture and staying mostly fine through much of the day. The best of the sunshine towards the southeast. Meanwhile, across Scotland and Northern Ireland, it is still going to be cloudy. It's going to be wet at times and some blustery winds to watch out for too. These will make it feel relatively unpleasant, but towards the southeast, feeling warm in the sunshine, temperatures peaking around 17 or 18. That rain in the northwest does sweep through towards the southeast as we go overnight into Friday, so a wet start across southeastern parts, but that rain clears through with then sunny spells, but also plenty of showers following in behind. Some of these showers could be heavy, could be thundery. There could even be some snow over the higher ground of Scotland because we are going to see our temperatures dropping. After a fine start on Saturday, more rain arrives later.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
please bring us up to date.
Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Labour's spring statement leaves the economy on a knife edge.
Global instability and a gloomy growth forecast have overshadowed the Chancellor's big day.
More money in the pockets of working people. Higher living standards promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government.
Warnings 250,000 more people could be forced into poverty as Labour supporters accuse the government of forgetting its roots.
And so we did have to make a number of difficult decisions on tax and welfare and on spending in the budget. I think you can see through this spring statement how determined I am, how determined this government is to live within the means that we set ourselves in the budget.
Well, that says the opposition accuses the Chancellor's spring statement of breaking election promises.
She said she wouldn't cut winter fuel payment, but she did. She said she wouldn't tax farmers, but she did. And she said she would not move to more than one fiscal event a year, and she just has.
The rise of bushmeat in Britain. Farmers unite to demand actions taken to stop the illegal smuggling of disease-ridden rat and lizard meat.
A cathedral in crisis. Unless £300,000 can be raised by the end of March, Peterborough Cathedral will struggle to keep its doors open.
Peterborough Cathedral in its hour of need. The community hub could close if action isn't taken.
Now, if you're 70 or above, watch out for a little-known change to your driving licence. We're asking whether older drivers are unfairly targeted.
And in sport this morning, Emma Raducanu has lost to the world number 4, Jennifer Pegula, in the Miami Open. Arsenal's women overturn a 2-0 deficit to knock out Real Madrid of the Champions League. I'll get through this. And who are the Premier League's biggest earners, and how much exactly do they make?
Hello there, good morning. We have a mixed bag of weather today, some rain, but also some warm sunshine. To find out where this will be, stay tuned and I'll have all the details.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Paul Coyte's feeling good this morning.
Well, I am. I'm feeling...
No,
yes.
that's great.
Yes, I feel great.
It's unusual for this time of day, to be fair.
Well, it's unusual for me, yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
Certainly unusual for the rest of us.
Are you okay?
No.
Are you feeling a bit tired today?
I'm very tired today, but it's the first night.
Of course it is, yeah.
You never sleep on the first night.
Do you get the Sunday scaries, but on a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Listen, the Sunday scary thing.
Yeah.
So that's a thing, because I get that.
It's the thing.
Terrible. It's the same as school, but it never really had a name, did it? It was always, I hate Sundays because it's like, although I enjoy going into work, it's always like, oh,
yeah. Isn't that funny?
Am I going to get up?
I like work and I liked school, but when Songs of Praise came on a Sunday evening, I knew the Sunday scaries were about to hit.
See, mine is probably more that Stephen will associate with more than you, Ellie. It's only an age thing. The theme tune to That's Life.
Oh, yeah.
Always meant da-da-da-da-da, and I was thinking that's the time I should be going to sit, because I would hear that coming through. And even when I hear that, not that I ever hear it, but always reminds me of that Sunday night going into school the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny? If you want to be depressed slightly more...
Yes, I really like that. Thank you.
Easter eggs, right, have gone up by more than 50%.
Oh, I can believe that.
Yeah, because it's not just the fact that the prices have gone up, but the fact that the amount of chocolate you're getting is going down again.
Yeah.
So, for example, an 80-gram pouch of Terry's chocolate orange mini eggs at Lidl cost 99p in the run-up to Easter last year, but is now £1.35, but has shrunk from 80 to 70 grams.
That's a big jump, isn't it?
That means a price rise of 56% per 100 grams.
That's not good.
See, I've got an Easter egg in mind that I'd like to ask for Christmas. It was £12.
12 quid.
I don't think that's extortionate for an Easter egg. I don't want to ask
for Christmas.
For Easter?
Well, for Easter,
Did I mean Easter? Did I say Christmas?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
It's one of those special Easter eggs.
Very special Easter egg.
The thing is,
an Easter egg, but I don't want to ask for it because it's too expensive.
Don't you think that the chocolate, though, on the Easter... is it my imagination, but the chocolate of the actual Easter egg itself is always the same, whereas I would like the chocolate of the Easter egg to be the same as the little bars that you get inside.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
It's like cheaper chalk.
It's a cheaper chalk in the egg, but then you get a couple of bars thrown in the middle there. I would like the egg to be made out of the chocolate of what...
I see.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I totally get that.
I think you should start a campaign, actually.
In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Excellent. Yes.
Okay. Let us know if you've spotted Easter eggs on the shelves that are costing a small fortune. Have you got one in mind?
No, I wasn't thinking of having one, really. Never thought of it.
Oh.
I'm 51.
He doesn't have a sweet tooth as well. This is his... Well, I'd say it's a blessing in life, actually, that you don't have a sweet tooth. Anyway, let us know what you think. gbnews.com/you'll say.
I'm not averse to receiving them. So there you go, just in case
Is that a hint?
Anyone's feeling
Strong
generous.
Hint. Break it off.
Right.
Break another piece off. Break another piece off.
You just eat the whole lot in one go, don't you?
Easily. Yeah.
Right, let's talk money with the Chancellor, because she's revealed her spring statement. If you missed it, our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, will bring you up to speed.
Now our task is to secure Britain's future in a world that is changing before our eyes. At the same time, the global economy has become more uncertain.
Rachel Reeves yesterday pledged to make Britain a defence industrial superpower, with increased defence spending creating jobs and growth at home. Speaking of growth, remember this?
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government.
But on that, the news isn't great.
And the OBR have today revised down our growth forecast for 2025, from 2% in the autumn to 1% today. I am not satisfied with these numbers.
So following £40 billion of tax rises and big spending in October's budget, the Chancellor yesterday announced £14 billion of spending cuts to avoid breaking her fiscal rules and recover the vanished £10 billion headroom she'd expected to have then. Outside of defence and the NHS, other departments will only get 1.2% increases in real terms.
Well, what the British people know, Mr. Speaker, is that this is a consequence of her choices. She is the architect of her own misfortune.
To many, it might feel like a return to austerity.
Well, it's not austerity because we're increasing the amount of money we're putting into our public services.
But on welfare, the Institute for Fiscal Studies says they're the biggest cuts to benefits since 2015.
Panic cuts, and that's going to hit many people with disabilities really hard, and in fact put around 200,000 people, including 50,000 children, into poverty.
And it's quite likely that Rachel Reeves may have to increase taxes or make more cuts in the budget this autumn. And there's a huge threat looming next week.
You'll be seeing Liberation Day. I call it Liberation Day in America. You're going to be seeing on April 2nd, but you'll be seeing tariffs.
The UK is trying to get a carve-out, but it might not work. We'll find out next Tuesday. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Well, we're joined now by political editor at The Spectator, Katie Balls. Good to see you this morning, Katie. And what did you make of what you heard yesterday from the Chancellor?
I think there was low on surprises. Most of it had been briefed out in advance, and I think that's because it was largely negative news. So therefore there was, I don't think politicians like to surprise with bad news. And therefore the welfare cuts, for example, we knew about the welfare reforms, but what was interesting was the fact they had to add in even more welfare cuts, because ultimately the OBR, the budget watchdog, had turned around and said, we don't think your current plans save as much money as you claim they do, which is tricky for the Labour government. But also Rachel Reeves, as a politician, has really lionised the OBR, saying, you know, look at Liz Truss and the mini budget, the OBR needs more power. And yet now you have some Labour politicians blaming the OBR for constraining the government so far on, you know, how much it can do, and whether that means we're now heading back to some form of austerity.
What I don't understand is the welfare cuts, which we heard Helen Whately there for the Conservatives moaning about, and yet we do know it was welfare cuts that the Tories were saying we would have implemented had we been re-elected in July.
Yes. I think that when it comes to what Helen Whately's saying, some Conservatives take issue with specific bits of the welfare reform package, but I agree in the sense it's obviously a little bit confusing when the Tories have gone around saying that they had to, you know, get people back into work, the ballooning, you know, benefits bill and so forth. And now Labour are doing this, along with a few other things, actually, the Tories said they wanted to do, such as, you know, cutting civil service jobs. You can go on, slashing international aid to fund defence. And I think it does mean the Tories are having to work out where they attack it when some of these things are the type of thing that they would want to do. They're not the type of thing, unfortunately, for Rachel Reeves that her party want her to do.
It's astonishing, isn't it, looking at the Daily Mirror this morning, which I've got in front of me, balancing the books on the back of the poor, and a very similar headline on the front page of The Guardian today, two left-leaning papers who are essentially saying Labour's forgotten their roots.
Yeah, and I think there is a feeling amongst Labour MPs, which is, you know, why did they go into politics? Why do they sing the red flag? It's not particularly for the things we just heard about yesterday, which is slashing benefits. More cuts to come, of course, potentially, because we also had the spending envelope yesterday, and that looks ahead to the spending review in the summer, and that could mean some real-term cuts for some of these non-protected departments. So the tricky thing for the Labour government is the bad news, I think, is just beginning. You also hear, you know, there could be tax rises they have to do at some point, potentially the autumn budget.
I mean, we heard that, didn't we, from the former governor of the Bank of England saying that there's no way to avoid income tax rises, actually, in all of this.
Yeah, and the OBR, so the watchdog, they've said that Rachel Reeves has a 51% chance of avoiding having to do tax rises to keep within her fiscal rules. But, you know, that is not a huge margin, is it? No. And then you also add to that, you know, the uncertainty when it comes to Donald Trump and tariffs, potentially car tariffs and so forth. And you can see a world where just as where Rachel Reeves left a very small amount of headroom at the last budget, again, a small amount of headroom now. And therefore, the pain of cuts could also be accompanied by tax rises. And then, you know, it's just, I think you start to fall out of everyone in the country, really.
One rabbit out of the hat was a boost in defence spending. What do you make of that?
Yes, I mean, I think because this was well trailed in advance, because, of course, ahead of the UK government visit to see Donald Trump, they wanted to have that out there. You know, it wasn't as surprising as it could have been, but clearly that's something they want to talk about. The problem is when you speak to figures in the Ministry of Defence, they will say, well, we actually needed that funding regardless of Donald Trump. So, you know, do we need even more money now because of the changing world? I suppose the other piece of potential good news was when it came to Labour's planning reforms. The OBR was saying, actually, we do think those are going to be quite good for growing the economy. It's just that is a couple of years down the line. So that's probably the thing that Rachel Reeves had the most reason to be pleased about, but it's pretty slim pickings.
OK. Katie, we'll see you a little bit later on, but for now, thank you.
Now, at 12 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom.
Well, as we've been saying, Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all cars not made in the United States. Speaking from the Oval Office, he said the move could generate $100 billion in new annual revenue. He also said the tariffs will come into effect at the beginning of April.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go.
Locals in Birmingham are hoping a new round of talks will finally resolve the long-running dispute over rubbish collection. Members of the union Unite have been striking indefinitely over work and pay conditions. Residents have said the issue is now so bad it's a health emergency.
It's a busy time for the Prince of Wales after he filmed an episode of Clarkson's Farm as part of a Duchy of Cornwall event to inspire young farmers. Prince William even said his eldest son, Prince George, is a big fan and will be tuning in. The Prince has since travelled to Aberdeen, where he's visiting the first homes built as part of his homelessness prevention initiative, Homewards.
Now, Peterborough Cathedral could become Britain's first part-time cathedral if it fails to raise £300,000 by the end of this month.
Yeah, rising costs of the 900-year-old site means it could have no choice but to open only a few days a week or even close completely.
Well, our reporter Jack Carson has the story.
A cathedral in crisis. Unless £300,000 can be raised by the end of March, Peterborough Cathedral will struggle to keep its doors open. This Norman cathedral has stood tall in the city for hundreds of years and is even the resting place of Catherine of Aragon. But higher energy bills, increased staff wages and maintaining this Grade 1 listed site means this space for prayer and the local community could become the country's first part-time cathedral. The Dean of Peterborough, the Very Reverend Christopher Dallaston, explains the importance of the cathedral to the city.
People can come here for any day of the week just to find stillness, peace, meaning, tranquility. Sometimes it's a bit noisier because we're having other events. We've got lovely packed with school children today, a place of music and delight in wonderful worship music, but also other concerts and so on. So it's here for all sorts of purposes, for all sorts of reasons, and that's really important for this city and for this wider community.
Each year, more than 100,000 people come for worship and events. But as the prospect of closure looms, businesses worry about the impact. Chief Operating Officer at the city's Business Improvement District, Pep Cipriano, says the cathedral is key to the local economy.
Maybe half the reason why people visit Peterborough is because of our cathedral. So imagine if it's closed. All of a sudden, the knock-on effect, less people coming into the city centre, bars closing, restaurants closing, cafes closing, retail operations struggling with footfall. It's a footfall pleaser. It brings people into the city centre. And as I say, our job as the bid is to make sure that we highlight this wonderful building and what it brings, but also highlight the rest of the city centres and make that half-day experience something real and something that people can enjoy and take advantage of.
Running the cathedral costs over £2 million annually. That's almost £6,000 a day. A grant from the Church of England only covers around 15% of income needed. Trustee Connor Butler says the increased costs have made it harder for the cathedral to operate.
In the same way, every business is being affected. It's a matter of fact that as the national insurance contribution increases have gone up, for the cathedral that has had an impact, and for all businesses that's had an impact.
Its future is in a critical state, but with enough support, this cathedral can fly the flag of Peterborough for generations to come. Jack Carson, GB News.
It cannot be allowed to close. How can you allow a cathedral to close? I mean, apart from the fact it's supporting the whole local economy, as Jack was explaining there, it's part of our history and our heritage and all the rest of it. We can't just let it go.
Over 900 years old, and Catherine of Aragon is
buried
there, yeah.
Well,
can't let that go.
No, we really can't. Anyway, if you would like to donate to save the cathedral, you can. You just go to www.peterboroughacathedral.org.uk and you can donate there. But I think there's some hard questions need to be asked about our history and our heritage and how we preserve it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get a check on the weather now, shall we, with Honor.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. An unsettled day ahead across parts of the northwest. Cloudier here with outbreaks of sometimes quite heavy rain. Across central and southern parts, it could be quite a murky start with mist and fog, but it's clearing relatively quickly through the course of the morning, allowing some sunshine to develop, particularly across parts of the southeast, where it will feel quite warm and pleasant in that sunshine too. A very different story though across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland. Cloudier here with outbreaks of rain slowly edging their way southeastwards and fairly breezy under those cloudier skies too. But where you do catch the sunshine, particularly across the southeast, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so well above average for the time of year and feeling warm in that spring sunshine. Through the course of the evening and overnight, we'll see this band of cloud and rain slowly edge its way southeastwards across the rest of the country. Once again, quite heavy at times, particularly around hilly areas, still rather blustery too around exposed coasts. So quite a wet end to the day across Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Fairly dry elsewhere across the UK, though with clearer skies, particularly across parts of the southeast, we're likely to see that mist and fog develop once again. This will soon be replaced, however, once again this band of cloud and rain continuing to skirt its way southeastward, so turning to quite a wet start across parts of Wales, central England, and then later on into the morning across parts of the southeast. And it's still not turning too much dry behind this too, some very blustery showers following on behind across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. And this system does bring in some slightly cooler air too, so it's a good chance we could even see some snow showers across western parts of Scotland, particularly across high ground. But it's across the far northwest where we'll see the bulk of the showers, slightly drier in between, though can't rule out the odd shower here and there, and that rain may linger for a time across parts of the southeast. And with that cooler air, those temperatures dipping away slightly, so only really seeing highs of around 13, possibly 14 degrees Celsius into tomorrow, so feeling slightly cooler than today.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, we're delighted, of course, that GB News Breakfast has been nominated for a Trick Award yet again.
Woohoo! Third year in a row. Yes, we've reached the shortlist for Best News Programme, and we need your help because it is one of the only awards, isn't it, that's voted for by you, the public. So it means the world to us if you would like to vote for us. If you want to do so, you can scan the QR code on your screens now, or you can head to poll-trig.org.uk.
That's a nice picture of all four of us there.
Yeah. I don't actually like that one of me.
Oh, don't you know?
No, I hate it, and it's everywhere.
We're
it's
also
quite stressful.
delighted to announce that our very own Charlie Peters has been nominated in the Best News Presenter category. So, there he is.
And there he is.
So please go and vote for us both.
Yeah, that's for his restless reporting on the grooming gangs in this country, which I'm sure loads of you agree needed to have a spotlight shone on it, and he has done so tirelessly for so many years now. So if you'd like to vote for him for Best News Presenter, you can scan the QR code or go to poll-trig.org.uk.
Now, just to let you know, we're going to be talking to the Chancellor at 8:40 this morning. But before that, we're going to be talking about, of all things, bushmeat. We'll tell you exactly what we mean by that in a couple of minutes.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Now, as Christians across the world observe Lent, we're bringing you daily reflections from ministers around the United Kingdom.
The GB News Daily Reflection.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell, the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church. When I was a kid, I pictured Jesus as a guy with brilliant blonde L'Oreal hair going around in a nightie and sandals saying nice things. But in the Bible, I discovered quite a different Jesus, a very controversial man who really divided opinion, and not along the lines we might have expected. We might have thought that the good, moral, religious people would rally to Jesus and the bad people would oppose him. But it was the opposite. The apparently good religious leaders hated Jesus, while those society rejected flocked to him. Jesus explained why. He said, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners. He's saying, I've not come for those who think they're good, but for those who know they're not. You see, in the end, our bad deeds aren't what keep us from Jesus. It's more likely our good deeds that do that. People who think they're good have never liked being told they're not. But those who know they're not have always loved the one who loves them nonetheless.
Now, at 25 minutes past 6, urgent action is needed to stop illegal bushmeat entering Britain and threatening the country's food supply.
Yeah, what is it, you may well be asking? Well, apparently anything from lizard to rats and insects are being sold on the black market. So how do police even begin to get a handle on it?
Well, we're now joined by the CEO of British Meat Processors Association, Nick Allen. Good to see you this morning, Nick. We hadn't even heard of bushmeat until this morning, but we're being told we need to clamp down on it.
Well, this is a problem that's actually been around for some time now, actually. In fact, if you look back through, the Hansard, they were discussing in Parliament in 2005, as a concern. So this has been going on for a long time. So, but I mean, our concerns are twofold, really. One is the hygiene for the public, the actual sort of threat of this. It's one thing to actually, bushmeat is something that it's a wild animal that's sort of killed in in the bush, and it's one thing to eat it sort of fresh. It's a different story to actually transport it illegally across the halfway across the world in unhygienic conditions. We spend a lot of time making sure that meat gets the public in a hygienic condition. It's kept chilled the whole time. It's so it's a different thing to transport this stuff illegally in suitcases and goodness in cars, and then sort of sell it. So there's a disease threat, for humans, and there's also a disease threat to our sort of farming sort of population, really, because it can bring in diseases, it can bring in sort of foot and mouth, it can bring in African swine fever, and that's a serious sort of threat. And quite honestly, we're not just concerned about bushmeat, we're concerned about some of the imports that are sort of coming in from countries, in Europe, really. For instance, we've been having some meat coming in from Romania, which we know has got African swine fever. Dover Port authorities even stopped a whole coach, and on the seats were bags of meat in unchilled conditions, so coming into the country. So we feel we really need to clamp down this from a public health point of view and from our farmers' point of view.
Well, absolutely. I mean, people will be horrified. But who is buying it, and do they know they're buying things like rat?
I think if they don't, they should do. And yes, I think they probably do know that they're sort of buying, what they're buying, really. There's probably, if they've come from Africa, they've probably grown up with these things and they see it sort of sold to them, on the market. They probably sort of, I think and believe that it's all right because it's the sort of thing that they've seen at home. But it's a different story over here. The point is it will have been transported illegally in unhygienic conditions. It won't have been kept chilled. It'll be a threat to them as well if they should sort of buy it, because there's no way it can be brought here so properly.
OK. Nick Allen, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Ooh, stuff of nightmares.
Awful.
Yeah.
Who would want to eat that?
I don't know. I mean, there's got to be a supply for it, though, otherwise...
Well, clearly there's demand, yeah.
It's very hard. It's very, very, very hard. Just stick with what you know.
Yeah, it would be one thing if you were out in the bush and wanted to eat something fresh just to experience it, but then to have it carted here to Britain, not even fresh now.
It's very worrying. Yeah. Anyway, it's a bit grim, isn't it, for breakfast? So let's give you something more pleasant to think about, which is the chance to spruce up your spring and grab 2 designer watches, a designer handbag and £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's how.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, if you're travelling to work or school this morning, here's your traffic and travel update.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Glasgow, Victoria Bridge is closed for an investigation. In Greater Manchester, the A663 is closed off junction 1 of the A627M at the Elkmill roundabout after an accident. Also in Greater Manchester, the A573 remains closed southbound from Goulburn Island to Newton Le Willows after a lorry overturned. In Buckinghamshire, the A40 is closed off junction 5 of the M40 at Stokenchurch after an accident. And Red Funnel jet sailings between Southampton and West Cowes on the Isle of Wight are suspended because of poor weather conditions. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Now, don't forget, we are interviewing the Chancellor at 8:40 this morning after her spring statement yesterday. But next up, Paul Coit is here as Emma Raducanu gets knocked out of another tennis competition. I've still got faith. This is GB News Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's 6:35, time for the sport with Paul Coit. Good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
All right, better than Emma Raducanu.
Oh.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, come on.
I don't know, because Emma, yes, OK, Emma Raducanu lost. Hold on, a little straw poll, though, where are we with Emma? I know, Ellie, you're not going to budge either way. You still
I'm not budging, no.
Love her, and you still think that she's got a title in her?
Well, she's got all the time in the world, already got a title under her belt, she's going to be fine.
Stephen? Emma Raducanu?
Yes.
No, don't believe it's going to happen.
No, I think she's
okay.
Toast.
Well, look, she got knocked out by the Miami Open yesterday by... well, actually, I say yesterday. It was just a few hours ago. It was in the night in America, in the Miami Open.
In the night
Jessica Pegula, she lost 6-4, 6-7, 6-2, and she... You know, it's very difficult to talk about without sounding patronising by going, well, she put up a good fight, she did have a good go, she'd had this horrible run, and this has probably been the best tennis that she's played since she won the US Open. So I think she may be OK. We don't know. You know, is she going to win another title? I don't know, but she did play better last night. So that's something to smile at, I guess. Iga Swiatek. This is an interesting one. 5-time major champion. She was dumped out yesterday by a Philippine teenager, Alexandra Ila. She's 140th in the world, is Alexandra. She won 6-2, 7-5. Swiatek served, broken 8 times. She's been through the 1-month doping ban, but the thing is, she's had problems. You know, there was a stalker around, Emma Raducanu. She had problems with that. This one, Iga Swiatek, she had someone screaming and shouting at her when she was warming up. It's interesting because the insults, it was more good old-fashioned insults rather than stalking, shouting at her, having a go about her family, and about her psychologist. Very bizarre. Very bizarre behaviour.
People are mad, aren't they?
They really are. So extra security around her, but she was anyway the world number 2, knocked out by the world number 140. Yeah.
Right.
Should we talk about Arsenal? Sorry.
Yep. It's OK. I'm pleased.
It's the women, so you don't mind the women winning, do you?
No.
That's all right.
Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0. We talked about the game, this is in the Champions League, talked about the game last week. They played over in Real Madrid. The conditions, do you remember they were awful? It was all mud and it was terrible, and they complained about the pitch, and I'm thinking, well, they don't get to complain about the pitch. It was like both teams had the same problem, although it did make a difference because when they got back and played at home last night, 3-0, a really great performance. Alessia Russo could have scored 4, but she did score a brace, so a very, very good result for Arsenal last night.
What's going on with Red Bull and Liam Lawson?
Yeah, Liam Lawson is this young driver. He's only 23.
Yeah.
So he's come into the team, and it's not gone well with him. Now, there are two... He was promoted over Sergio Perez after he left. So anyway, he's from New Zealand, came in, and has not been good. Now, there are only 2 races in, for crying out loud. There's only 2 races so far. You've got to give someone a chance. When you bring them into a team, if it ain't working immediately, you're not going to go, well, that's it, you're finished. But it seems that Christian Horner is going to do this. Now, it hasn't been confirmed exactly that he is going, but all the talk around Red Bull and all the talk around F1 is that he's going to be out, and he's going to be replaced with Yuki Tsunoda, who's Japanese. So the Japanese Grand Prix is coming up, and I don't know whether... See,
it just seems really ruthless.
It is extremely ruthless. Now, there's a lot of money in F1, and obviously we're talking the top of the game, and you've got to be as good as you're possibly going to be. So is it the fault that he's 23 and he's been brought in too early, or should he be given more of a chance? See, I just think that if anybody comes in, firstly, what's it going to do to them? You're out. Is it going to make them sort of think, OK, I'm going to try harder and then come back again? Or could it ruin them forever?
It'd probably ruin them.
It's
really hard.
Really, really harsh decision. So I don't know how I feel about it one way or the other, but I know that if you're Liam Lawson, you're going to be pretty disappointed about it.
Yes.
Should we talk about the Premier League rich list?
What? Money, money, money.
Yep. This has been come out by L'Équipe.
Oh, L'Équipe.
Which is my favourite French sports journal.
Oh, yes.
Or Journal de Sport, as I like to call it. Right, the richest footballers... Now, this is done on salary, so they're going to get bonuses, because they're going to be bonus on top of that.
Oh, are they?
Oh, yeah, this is just the starting salary. This is what's going to go straight into the account one way or the other. So, number 1 is Erling Haaland. How much per week?
£365,000.
Stephen?
450,000.
£537,000 a week. Plus bonuses, plus sponsorship. It's enough to keep you going for a while, isn't it?
Wow.
A week.
Oh, my goodness.
Second is Kevin De Bruyne, who plays with him at Manchester City. I think his days are numbered, so he's going to make as much money as he can at the moment. £432,000 a week. Yeah, then you've got Casemiro at Manchester United, who's not doing terribly well. Mo Salah at Liverpool are on 376. Marcus Rashford, who's also been, elbowed out of Manchester United, gone to Aston Villa, 350,000 a week. And Raheem Sterling, who's gone from Chelsea on loan to Arsenal, he's on 350 grand a week as well. And when it comes to managers... Now, do you think managers are going to be higher, lower?
Higher.
Higher. Pep Guardiola, 416,000 a week. You've got Mikel Arteta at Arsenal, 309,000. The reason these are weird numbers is probably because it's done in euros. They worked out in euros. And the third place, this is a surprise, David Moyes at Everton, who's gone to Everton, and you think of all these other big names around, but he's gone in at 257 grand a week. It's good. And so when you've got managers
a month.
complaining about this and complaining about that and saying, oh, it's not right the way we're spoken to, etc., you know what? For that sort of money...
Say what you like.
Say what you like. Yeah. Say what you like.
Honestly. Talking to people with lots of money...
Yes.
Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Basketball player.
Yep, correct.
Golden State Warriors.
Golden State Warriors. Love the fact that you know the basketball.
Yeah.
Played against the Toronto Raptors. Now, this is a warm-up. Now, there's a little controversy around this. Firstly, this shot, have a look at this. It's unbelievable. Right, Steph Curry, here we go. Leans out there, throws it, and... boom.
That's the full length of the...
But... see the truth there?
Oh, it didn't go in.
So you see it from a distance and you think, it's a swoosh. It's just gone straight in the net, but slowly it's actually...
oh, it's just hit the basket.
Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Look at that. Didn't even go in anyway.
Oh, it was very nearly, though.
I know, but look at that. Look at that. But everybody, because it comes flying over, everybody assumed that it went in.
Yeah.
You know, but... are we nitpicking? I think we probably
I think we're nitpicking.
I think we're nitpicking.
Yeah, most of us couldn't even get close.
No, it's
Good
true.
on him.
Have you ever tried throwing a basketball from any distance at all?
No, oddly enough.
No, well, I'll bring one in and we'll have a go. But it really is not easy.
I haven't always failed,
Yeah.
Always failed.
All right, Paul, we'll see you later. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go through the papers shortly, but first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms moving their way eastwards across Europe, affecting regions around the Adriatic Sea. But there is some sunshine in places. The odd shower affecting Madeira and Tenerife. But after all the heavy rain from the beginning of March, Portugal, Spain seeing a much better week with plenty of sunshine on offer. But moving our way eastwards, these are going to be where we see those heavy showers and thunderstorms affecting the Adriatic Sea coasts and also Greece. But we'll see a steady improvement as we head into next week. But the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Interesting research here, because on the one hand, it looks as though awareness of ADHD and the symptoms is rising because of TikTok and influencers promoting the symptoms of TikTok. But there's also research that suggests that usage of TikTok itself can cause ADHD. So how do we kind of untangle this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's a double whammy, really, because I think, as you say, on the one hand, you've got this almost like social contagion of increased awareness of symptoms that either are ADHD or, as you have pinpointed, mimic ADHD. And we know that increased and excessive screen time, you know, not just TikTok actually, but all social media time, mimics ADHD. You know, anyone that has a child and has witnessed their own child spending, you know, obsessive time scrolling through social media or gaming and seeing what that does to a child, particularly, I think, young children's attention.
Yeah, my best friend, she was telling me, oh, yeah, I've known her since she was 4 years old. And she was chatting to me the other day and she goes, you know what? I've got ADHD. That's, well, if you've got it, I've got it. It's ridiculous. There are so many people saying they've got it. It's getting to epidemic proportions. Isn't it a bit ridiculous, all these people claim they've got it? What is it? What is it?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I completely agree. I think it is absolutely ridiculous. And I agree. I'm being tongue-in-cheek about TikTok. I do. My personal view is that TikTok is uniquely awful. I think it is absolutely mindless. Does anyone ever feel good after scrolling on TikTok? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there will be some people. So, I do accept these platforms are different for different people. I do think, though, we have to really ask, why is there this apparent explosion of ADHD and this rush for everyone to diagnose themselves?
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
6:47, time for the papers, and the Telegraph says we're on track for 5 years of record taxes after the Chancellor's spring statement.
Rachel Reeves is branded deluded by the Daily Mail as her fiscal plans face backlash.
The Express leads on the Chancellor as well, accusing her of killing growth.
And finally, the Prince of Farming. The Sun has a picture of Prince William filming a special episode of Clarkson's Farm.
Prince of Bales is there. Headline,
yes, very good headline.
Which is very good.
Let's
talk to former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker and GB News presenter and contributor Alex Armstrong. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Morning.
Norman, 5 years of record taxes, says the Telegraph.
Well, I think they're probably correct. I mean, we've now got a record high in 37.7% of GDP on to the tax burden, which is very high indeed. We've got the failure to change the barrier where you move from lower tax to higher tax. So more people have been pulled into the tax bracket as we go on. And there's no respite, really. And, of course, this affects the economy because if people have got more tax they're paying, they've got less money in their pocket to buy stuff and help the economy generally. So this isn't very good news for individuals or for the economy, in my view. But I'm afraid the Telegraph headline is accurate, in my view.
Yeah, it's quite shocking stuff, and I think, Norman, you and I were chatting in the green room about this, and we said it's like, when you do those blind taste tests, like beans, and you don't know whether it's Heinz or Lidl. I mean, you rip off the Labour Party logo, and this could be the Conservative Party 2.0, couldn't it? It's austerity. We're talking about severe cuts to the welfare state. We're talking about increase.
Is that a bad thing?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing, but is it what people voted for? Is the question. And I don't think this is what the country voted for. This is not what they were promised. This is not what they were promised to deliver economically. And quite clearly, rather than saying, we made a mess of the last budget and now we're having to rectify it, we're being sold another new budget, which was never meant to happen, as some sort of, gleeful, oh, well done, everybody, we've got to have this spring statement. This is a disaster.
Rachel Reeves is the weakest link in the Cabinet, in my view, and doesn't command respect and authority as Chancellor, and doesn't look like a Chancellor, I'm afraid, and these things are important in the way they're presented. But, of course they had a terrible inheritance, let's be honest about that, when they came into power. But there are choices they can make. They can, for example, increase the digital services tax and start getting some of these American billionaires to pay more money. They can look at the huge profits being made by the big banks at the moment, which are not touching. Instead, they're cutting people's disability allowances. I mean, it's disgusting, actually.
Have they forgotten their roots, do you think, Norman?
They've lost their roots. I mean, this is not a Labour government. I don't know where they're going, but if you look at what they're doing, cutting overseas aid, cutting benefits for people on very low incomes, pushing up spending. I'm not saying it's wrong, but what I'm saying is that's not a Labour government.
No, but hold on. If you're not saying it's wrong, are you saying it's right? Are you saying, does the benefits, do these people a lot of these people need to have benefits either frozen or actually removed? Do we need to tighten up on that?
There are some people who are on benefits who could be working, and it's right to try and push them into work. And it's right also that some people getting benefits don't need those benefits. On the other hand, there are people who really can't work and are going to be affected by this. And I think the figure I saw was that 3.5 million people are going to be worse off as a consequence of this budget. And they're the ones at the bottom end of the scale, not the top guys.
Yeah, the reality for me is that we were first promised a budget of growth in the autumn, right? That was the whole big thing. We haven't seen that growth. In fact, we've seen growth revised downwards.
Yeah.
And the reality is that you cannot tax your way to growth. The Chancellor said it yesterday. But what are we getting? More taxes. So the reality is that we're going to... it seems very likely...
What more taxes are we getting?
Well, as Norman said, with that income tax threshold is frozen. We're going to also have... soon we're going to have the a new employment bill go through, which is going to tighten controls
and the
for businesses.
Taxes, of course.
Business taxes. I mean, this is, quite an incredible... I mean, it is the highest ever this country has ever faced, ever, which is quite shocking. And, by doing so, what's going to happen is we're going to have less businesses, less millionaires, less wealthy people to create growth, and then we're going to have to tax again in the autumn later this year. It's a never-ending tax cycle until something breaks.
Do you think tax rises in October, November are inevitable?
Inevitable, but I think they're quite likely because she's on a very, very fine line, according to her own assessment, as to where she is. And if the Americans, for example, impose tariffs, which looks like it's quite likely on the UK, then that will push her into more taxes.
Yeah, but what's the alternative? What's from what she's facing, and you forget the blame game becomes irrelevant at this point, whether it's 14 years of Conservative government or just purely down to what she did in the budget. But what's the alternative here? She needs to get more money. So what does she do? She either borrows it, which is a bad move, she taxes for it, which is a bad move, or she makes all these cuts.
Well, I gave you a couple of examples of where she could raise money painlessly and more equitably. One was a digital services tax. These American tech companies are making an absolute fortune out of this country. They're not
how's
paying
that
tax.
good for growth?
Well, I mean, they can afford it. It won't affect their product and what they do at all if they pay more tax.
Wouldn't they just get up and leave?
No, they won't get up and leave because, they have to be in every single country in the world, these tech companies. They won't get up and leave. They could be taxed more equitable. You could look at the big banks and the huge amount of money they're making at the moment in terms of profits. There are options she's got which are more palatable than the ones she's chosen.
Isn't it fair? But if we're wasting money, which is what the conclusion is from this, on a lot of people on welfare who should not be on welfare, then why not cut back on that?
Well, no, I'm not saying
why not cut back on international aid, foreign aid?
Well, that's a different... OK, there's two separate issues there. On the international aid issue, I mean, first of all, you're looking at the poorest people in the world who are now not able to access vaccines and everything else. And the Americans have cut their programmes entirely, nearly, which means that people are now going to be dying who weren't dying previously. And there is an international responsibility. We also are supposed to be exercise soft power as a UK, and that's a classic example of soft power. In terms of benefits, of course we should look at where benefits are being abused and cut some of those. But she's gone further and cutting benefits from people who've got no alternatives.
OK. Well, Norman, Alex, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid, but we'll see you in the next hour. Let us know what you think on that one, gbnews.com/you'll say. Let's get a check on the weather now with Honor.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. An unsettled day ahead across parts of the northwest. Cloudier here with outbreaks of sometimes quite heavy rain. Across central and southern parts, it could be quite a murky start with mist and fog, but it's clearing relatively quickly through the course of the morning, allowing some sunshine to develop, particularly across parts of the southeast, where it will feel quite warm and pleasant in that sunshine too. A very different story, though, across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland. Cloudier here with outbreaks of rain slowly edging their way southeastwards and fairly breezy under those cloudier skies too. But where you do catch the sunshine, particularly across the southeast, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so well above average for the time of year and feeling warm in that spring sunshine. Through the course of the evening and overnight, we'll see this band of cloud and rain slowly edge its way southeastwards across the rest of the country. Once again, quite heavy at times, particularly around hilly areas, still rather blustery too around exposed coasts. So quite a wet end to the day across Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Fairly dry elsewhere across the UK, though with clearer skies, particularly across parts of the southeast, we're likely to see that mist and fog develop once again. This will soon be replaced, however, once again this band of cloud and rain continuing to skirt its way southeastwards, so turning to quite a wet start across parts of Wales, central England, and then later on into the morning across parts of the southeast. And it's still not turning too much drier behind this too. Some very blustery showers following on behind across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. And this system does bring in some slightly cooler air too, so it's a good chance we could even see some snow showers across western parts of Scotland, particularly across high ground. But it's across the far northwest where we'll see the bulk of the showers, slightly drier in between. They can't rule out the odd shower here and there, and that rain may linger for a time across parts of the southeast. And with that cooler air, those temperatures dipping away slightly, so only really seeing highs of around 13, possibly 14 degrees Celsius into tomorrow, so feeling slightly cooler than today.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Glasgow, the A8 is closed over Victoria Bridge for an investigation. On the A627M in Greater Manchester, the northbound exit at Junction 1 at the Elk Mill roundabouts closed after an accident. Also in Greater Manchester, the A573 remains closed off the A580 between Goulburn Island and Newton Willows after a lorry overturned on Tuesday. In Buckinghamshire, the A40 is closed off Junction 5 of the M40 at Stokenchurch after an accident. Trains have been stopped between Barnham and Horsham after a fire, and Red Funnel Red Jet sailings to and from the Isle of Wight are suspended between Southampton and West Cowes because of poor weather.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Labour's spring statement leaves the economy on a knife edge.
Global instability and a gloomy growth forecast have overshadowed the Chancellor's big day.
More money in the pockets of working people. Higher living standards promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government.
Warnings: 250,000 more people could be forced into poverty as Labour supporters accuse the government of forgetting its roots.
And so we did have to make a number of difficult decisions on tax and welfare and on spending in the budget. I think you can see through this spring statement how determined I am, how determined this government is to live within the means that we set ourselves in the budget.
Well, that's as the opposition accuses the Chancellor's spring statement of breaking election promises.
She said she wouldn't cut winter fuel payment, but she did. She said she wouldn't tax farmers, but she did. And she said she would not move to more than one fiscal event a year, and she just has.
President Trump could slam the brakes on our economic growth, not that we've got much, as he announces a 25% levy on all vehicles not made in the US. It's a huge blow to our auto industry.
They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe.
A cathedral in crisis. Unless £300,000 can be raised by the end of March, Peterborough Cathedral will struggle to keep its doors open.
Peterborough Cathedral in its hour of need. The community hub could close if action isn't taken.
Now, if you're older than 70, watch out for a little-known change to your driving licence. We'll explain all and asking whether older drivers are being unfairly targeted.
And in sport this morning, Emma Raducanu has lost to the world number 4, Jennifer Pegula, in the Miami Open overnight. Arsenal's women overturned a 2-0 deficit to knock Real Madrid out of the Champions League. And are Red Bull right to drop a driver after just 2 races?
Hello there, good morning. We have a mixed bag of weather today, some rain, but also some warm sunshine. To find out where this will be, stay tuned and I'll have all the details.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Now, I know you two are very, very excited for Celebrity Big Brother.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. That comes back.
I do like the adverts that have been coming up. Have you seen them with the guinea pigs?
Oh, no, I haven't actually. I didn't know anything about it till I read it in the paper this morning.
They are cute.
But did you know that someone who signed up for it... So I don't understand these programmes.
Did you know anybody that's in it?
Chesney Hawkes.
Well, one hit.
I mean, he's 53 now. Do you even know who he is?
His name rings a bell.
Yeah, so he had one hit, which was a great tune.
Which is?
I am the one and only.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
He's
a good get.
Yeah, but he had
He can serenade them in the house.
That's the only hit.
The one hit. It's a film called Buddy's Song. Do you remember that? That was what it was from.
Oh, is it?
It was written by Nick Kershaw.
I knew it was written by Nick Kershaw.
Yeah, that was it. There was one hit. And a whole career, and this is over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Oh, well, it's more hits than I've got, I think. Yeah.
I don't think most people will know who he is. Mind you, does that matter for Celebrity Big Brother these days?
Apparently, I was reading in one of the papers this morning that Michael Fabricant is going in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Got a very big deal, apparently. So, Michael, if you're watching, listening, I know you watch a lot of GB News, let us know. Give us an exclusive this morning. Are you heading in to the Celebrity Big Brother house?
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I'm interested to see the lineup. I never watch these things, but I do like to see the lineup.
But let's face it, we only really want to watch it because we want to see arguments between people, isn't it? We don't really want to see people being nice.
No, you don't want to see people being nice. I think it's why I don't watch them.
But that's it. It's like, well, hello, how are you? And said, I'll tell you who I was talking to. I was with Barry McGuigan.
Oh, yeah.
Yesterday. And he was talking about being an I'm a celebrity. And he was saying, well, you know, I wanted to make sure that it was people I was going to like because I can't see the point of going in there. And you think, well, actually, the reason people want to see it is because they want to see a little bit like in the early days when it was Darren Day and Rona Cameron who were going at it and arguing. Same as Big Brother, you want to see a little bit of tension between and see celebrities for what they really are instead of
what
just putting it on for the camera, and that's what a lot of them, you know, reality stars are.
Most celebrities,
not real.
Most celebrities are horrible.
That's what I see as well.
It's true. It's true, isn't it, Ellie? She's saying nothing.
Wow. Some are nice.
Some are nice.
Some are nice.
They are.
I tell you
Not
what,
so nice.
when you meet celebrities and they're nice and really lovely, genuine people, it's a shock.
Oh, it's not that bad, is it really?
I tell you who's a really nice fella is Matt Damon.
Is he?
He's a really nice man. But honestly, it's like you meet him and you're like, wow, I can't believe he is genuinely actually nice.
You know what
Isn't that sad, though, that
it's
you
a
think
trick
that?
I really like the celebrities have done. When I've been to interview film stars, Tom Hanks has done it and Michael Douglas, and you go up to say, I'm Paul, you go, hey, I'm Michael. And you go, I know you are, but it's a nice
humble.
touch.
Yeah.
It's a nice touch. And you can tell straight away whether a nice person or not.
Yeah.
Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, really?
Scary.
Okay.
Put it this way, Jaws was probably friendlier than Richard Dreyfuss.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, dear. That's a shame.
That is a shame.
Never meet your heroes. It's very true, you know. Very, very true. Right. Let's crack on with the news because the Chancellor's revealed her first spring statement. And if you missed it, our political correspondent Catherine Forster can bring you right up to speed.
Now our task is to secure Britain's future in a world that is changing before our eyes. At the same time, the global economy has become more uncertain.
Rachel Reeves yesterday pledged to make Britain a defence industrial superpower, with increased defence spending creating jobs and growth at home. Speaking of growth, remember this?
Economic growth is the #1 mission of this government.
But on that, the news isn't great.
And the OBR have today revised down our growth forecast for 2025, from 2% in the autumn to 1% today. I am not satisfied with these numbers.
So following £40 billion of tax rises and big spending in October's budget, the Chancellor yesterday announced £14 billion of spending cuts to avoid breaking her fiscal rules and recover the vanished £10 billion headroom she'd expected to have then. Outside of defence and the NHS, other departments will only get 1.2% increases in real terms.
Well, what the British people know, Mr. Speaker, is that this is a consequence of her choices. She is the architect of her own misfortune.
To many, it might feel like a return to austerity.
Well, it's not austerity because we're increasing the amount of money we're putting into our public services.
But on welfare, the Institute for Fiscal Studies says they're the biggest cuts to benefits since 2015.
Panic cuts, and that's going to hit many people with disabilities really hard, and in fact put around 200,000 people, including 50,000 children, into poverty.
And it's quite likely that Rachel Reeves may have to increase taxes or make more cuts in the budget this autumn. And there's a huge threat looming next week.
You'll be seeing Liberation Day. I call it Liberation Day in America. You're going to be seeing it on April 2nd, but you'll be seeing tariffs.
The UK is trying to get a carve-out, but it might not work. We'll find out next Tuesday. Catherine Forster, GB News.
Well, we're joined now by political editor at The Spectator, Katie Balls. Good to see you this morning, Katie. What did you make of what you heard yesterday from the Chancellor?
I mean, I think it was pretty dreary news taken as a whole. We knew some of these pieces of bad news were coming, which was, for example, that the Chancellor had basically had her fiscal headroom had gone from the autumn budget. She hadn't left herself loads, and that was the reason behind lots of these cuts, which were trailed in advance on welfare, the civil service, also looking at NHS efficiencies. And then also we had a sense from the Bank of England forecast and so forth that the growth forecast would be revised in a negative direction, and it was halved. So I think that you saw Rachel Reeves trying to put a positive spin on it, partly because I think she was accused of being too pessimistic early on. But even with, you know, the most enthusiastic performance, she can't really get away from the fundamentals, which is the UK economy is in a really difficult place. And without some growth, we're heading to a world of probably more tax rises, potentially more spending cuts, and potentially having to borrow more, which is the UK is not in a good position to do.
What about growth, though? Because, I mean, what growth does seem to be dependent on house building, actually. That seems to be the way forward at the moment. There's a determination to get that through, changing to planning regulations and all the rest of it. They say laying the foundations for growth. Is that actually where we are? Could we, in 2 or 3 years, see the economy dramatically change?
So I'm not sure if it dramatically changed, but certainly I think one of the most positive things you can say about this Labour government, particularly, you know, backed up by the OBR, is the planning reforms they are bringing in, something the Tories often talked about doing something similar, but shied away from because some of their backbenchers didn't like it. So Boris Johnson didn't go ahead with what he promised. Those planning reforms have been marked highly, and there is a sense that they are going to be good for growth. Also, there's a question about whether they actually hit the housing target they've set themselves. At the moment, it's looking a bit ambitious, but I think given the UK's record on this in recent years, even getting quite close to that target would be an achievement.
And in the meantime, plenty of pain up front. I mean, we've got all these bills going up on the 1st of April, start of the financial years. We've got national insurance rise coming as well. Do you think that tax rises in the budget in October will be inevitable at this point?
I think it's hard to say at this point, but ultimately, if you look at the options Rachel Reeves has, as you say, lots of business have been really spooked by the decision by Rachel Reeves in the autumn to raise employer and national insurance. And that is already impacting business decisions. Now, that is coming into effect very soon. So we haven't even really seen the force of that. And it means, I think, while there are some Labour MPs saying, well, if you need more money, you should, raise taxes, I think that in number 10, number 11, they're very nervous that this is going to be even worse for economic growth if you add more taxes into the system. But we're also seeing how hard the cuts are, and the markets don't really want to borrow to the UK because we've lost a lot of goodwill. We're not seen as a particularly attractive place to when it comes to borrowing, and if you do that, the risk is that suddenly all the interest payments go up, and we spend even more money servicing the debt, which already doing an eye-watering amount on. So you start to think, in terms of levers, if she can't get economic growth, we're heading to tax rises. I think it's just a question of how quickly they would come in. And the fact that the OBR says there's a 49% chance you're heading to tax rises, it might not be the most likely, but that's a pretty slim margin.
It is. All right, Katie, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you this morning. Well, let's talk to former Labour spokesperson James Matthewson, who's written to the Chancellor about welfare cuts. James, good morning. Presumably you've not written a glowing letter of support.
Is that just on your reflections about me as a pessimist generally, Stephen? I mean, you're right. It's not really the most supportive of letters. However, it comes from a good place. And myself and another Labour commentator who you have on, I think, regularly, Stella, have had to take this decision because we come out to bat for Labour on a regular basis. We both were Labour advisors. We've been staffers. We've worked for the party. We're not factional people. We're pluralists. We want to see a plural Labour Party. But when it comes to the Labour Party's economic direction currently, it's becoming increasingly difficult to support it and come out here on the media regularly and try and make sense of the direction, because so many people in our country right now are asking, well, what's the difference between Labour and the Conservatives? If the Conservatives were in power right now, what would they be doing differently? How would they be looking at the economy as opposed to how Labour does it? And if that's the case, going towards the next election especially, then that benefits one person, and that's Nigel Farage.
What do you think is going on here, then? Do you think the Labour Party has forgotten its roots? Do you think because they've got this stomping great majority, they can make difficult decisions? I mean, that's what Rachel Reeves is saying, that these are difficult decisions that had to be made.
It's a bit of everything, I think, really. There's certainly fear in the Labour Party, and there has been for a long time, about looking credible on the economy. And this comes out of, the very effective campaign run by David Cameron and George Osborne back in the day during their austerity era around Labour crashing the economy. Labour's had to try and prove that it's fiscally responsible ever since, and it did that effectively during the election campaign, I think. However, Rachel Reeves is a very serious economic person, and I think she is more concerned with building a legacy around bringing the deficit down than actually the human cost of some of these policies and the actual principle of them, because she's in government now. She sees herself as the UK's Chancellor, and that's fair enough, but she is a UK Labour Chancellor, and there needs to be a fundamental difference in how Labour steers the economy versus how the Tories do it. Because if we break that reality and that understanding that the electorate have of what the Labour Party is, like I say, you fall into that trap of somebody saying they're all the same. And when they say they're all the same, what's the option that's left to people? The more extreme option, which I believe is the likes of reform.
Yes, but it is about what's available on the table, isn't it? And if she'd gone down other routes and things like wealth taxes and all the rest of it, I mean, what you're looking at is regardless of individual people, you have to say, looking at the macro picture, you're looking at an economy which is even less likely to grow.
It's true. There's not many easy options to take. It's very, very difficult given the climate at the moment. However, there's certain policies that are on the table. Things like, the triple lock on pensions. We've really been boxed into this position by ourselves because when it comes to, things like where you put taxes up and which policies you defend, the triple lock on pensions, for example, is a Tory policy. It was brought in by the Conservatives. Is it necessary still to be maintained? Billions could be saved there. And even if you just look at the narrative and the rhetoric across the country, when you cut winter fuel allowance, when you've already gone after people who are vulnerable and who don't have much left, then just showing that you're also willing to do that to the most powerful, a 2% tax on people earning over, a 2% increase in tax on those earning over £10 million a year would just show that there's willingness to balance the books fairly, and we're not seeing that at the moment.
But forgive me, isn't it fair to say that the welfare state is bloated, that we're paying out far too much in benefits and to people who, quite frankly, don't need it? It's not about taking money off the people who are desperately in need of it, those people who cannot work. It's about taking money away from people who actually should be getting out to work and becoming more self-reliant. How is that not a sensible policy?
There needs to be welfare reform, undoubtedly, but you don't do that by blocking access for everybody, because then, of course, those who are in need struggle to get it, and people are already struggling, especially when it comes to things like personal independence payments. We see this across the country, citizens' advice bureaus having to coach people through PIP tribunals to try and get money that they're entitled to already. If you make that more difficult for everyone to get hold of, you make it more difficult for those who are in need to get it as well. And we're seeing those statistics, referenced by charities overnight since the budget's been announced. 250,000 more people pushed into poverty, and children as well. We've got to remember that children in homes have not made any choices about how they live their lives. They're affected, by the situation they're born into, and it's Labour's duty to try and protect those people.
OK, James Matthewson, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid, this morning, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, let's have a look at some of the other key stories heading into the newsroom at 17 minutes past 7.
US President Donald Trump has announced a 25% tariff on all cars not made in the United States. Speaking from the Oval Office, the president said the move could generate more than $100 billion in new annual revenue. The president said the tariffs will come into effect at the beginning of April.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%.
Locals in Birmingham are hoping a new round of talks will finally resolve the long-running dispute over bin collections. Members of Unite have been striking indefinitely over work and pay. Residents have said the issue is so bad, it's now a health emergency.
It's been a busy time for the Prince of Wales after he filmed an episode of Clarkson's Farm as part of the Duchy of Cornwall's event to inspire young farmers. Prince William even said his eldest son, Prince George, is a big fan of the show and will be tuning in. The Prince has since travelled to Aberdeen, where he's visiting the first homes built as part of his homelessness prevention initiative, Homewards.
I was just going to say, with the other Trump thing and the tariffs...
I do know the Trump thing and the tariffs.
Which could be very bad news for the British car industry. There's no two ways about it. However, I can't help but look at it and say, America first? Can you blame him for that?
No.
I mean, they've got a huge car industry. I mean, look at Detroit. I mean, massive car industry based in Detroit. Shouldn't they be focusing on that? I mean, should we follow suit? Should we have very large tariffs on cars not built in the UK to drive us all to buy UK-built cars and to bolster our own car manufacturing industry?
I think there'd be lots of people in this country who would welcome that, actually, and say, buy British, and slap tariffs on anything else that's from outside Britain.
I mean,
because we're not really manufacturing anything anymore, are we?
No, not in the same way.
Not able to.
I'm not saying I either agree or disagree with what he's doing. I'm just saying I can't blame him. I can understand the direction he's going in with that. especially when they've got a very big and yet declining car industry in the States.
And you could say the same with steel, couldn't you? I mean, Michigan relies on steel. So you can understand why you slap tariffs on that. Let us know what you think, gbnews.com/your say. We've got some very happy news this morning. We are delighted to say that GB News Breakfast has been nominated for a Trick Award again. This is the third year in a row. We've won twice now. It'd be wonderful to make it the triple for Best News Programme. But we need your help because this is voted for by you, the public, the viewers and the listeners. So if you would like to see Breakfast win Best News Programme, you can do so by scanning the QR code on your screen now, or you can head to the website poll-trick.org.uk.
Also, our very own Charlie Peters has been nominated in the Best News Presenter category. You'll know him, of course, all that incredible work he's done on revealing the grooming gangs scandal. So don't forget, you can vote for him as well at poll.trick.org.uk.
Now at 21 minutes past 7, let's get a check on the weather, shall we, with Honor.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. An unsettled day ahead across parts of the northwest. Cloudier here with outbreaks of sometimes quite heavy rain. Across central and southern parts, it could be quite a murky start with mist and fog, but it's clearing relatively quickly through the course of the morning, allowing some sunshine to develop, particularly across parts of the southeast, where it will feel quite warm and pleasant in that sunshine too. A very different story, though, across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland. Cloudier here with outbreaks of rain slowly edging their way southeastwards and fairly breezy under those cloudier skies too. But where you do catch the sunshine, particularly across the southeast, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so well above average for the time of year and feeling warm in that spring sunshine. Through the course of the evening and overnight, we'll see this band of cloud and rain slowly edge its way southeastwards across the rest of the country. Once again, quite heavy at times, particularly around hilly areas, still rather blustery too around exposed coasts. So quite a wet end to the day across Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Fairly dry elsewhere across the UK, though with clearer skies, particularly across parts of the southeast, we're likely to see that mist and fog develop once again. This will soon be replaced, however, once again this band of cloud and rain continuing to skirt its way southeastwards, so turning to quite a wet start across parts of Wales, central England, and then later on into the morning across parts of the southeast. And it's still not turning too much drier behind this too, some very blustery showers following on behind across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. And this system does bring in some slightly cooler air too, so it's a good chance we could even see some snow showers across western parts of Scotland, particularly across high ground. But it's across the far northwest where we'll see the bulk of the showers, slightly drier in between, though can't rule out the odd shower here and there, and that rain may linger for a time across parts of the southeast. And with that cooler air, those temperatures dipping away slightly, so only really seeing highs of around 13, possibly 14 degrees Celsius into tomorrow, so feeling slightly cooler than today.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, don't miss our interview with the Chancellor at 8:40 a.m. this morning. That's after her spring statement yesterday. But next up, we're going to be asking if older drivers should have more frequent tests, or is this just ageism? Talk about that next.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 7:27. Now, time is running out on your chance to spruce up your spring. You can get 2 designer watches, a designer handbag, and £17,777 in tax-free cash. Here's how you enter.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, drivers over 70 will lose more freedoms on the road under a little-known policy.
Yes, it means older drivers will have to apply for separate permits if they want to drive heavier vehicles and minibuses.
Well, is this right? Well, to debate this, we're joined by criminal defence lawyer Paul Britton and former MEP and environmental campaigner Stanley Johnson. Morning, gentlemen. Good to see you. Paul, let's start with you. What do you make of it?
Straight in at the deep end. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. These vehicles that the policy is going to impose restrictions on are much more cumbersome, heavier to drive, and can cause more risk to other vehicles and pedestrians. The chance of being a casualty if you're hit by a larger vehicle, whiplash or other injuries, vastly increased, is so that it's a good policy to introduce.
You're a danger on the road, Stanley.
I think this is a symptom of people ganging up on older people. I actually consider myself not as an older person. I'm only 85, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to drive for another 20 years. But I worry about this effort to discriminate against the older people. Imagine you're an older person, you have this thing hanging over you. Oh, my God, I'm quite soon going to be able to retake my driving test. I think we've got to be really careful before we go down this route, so I'm dead against it.
Stanley, it's not about discriminating on age. It's about looking at the probability of having an accident when you reach a certain age. I mean, if we're going to say it's discrimination, we could say that we discriminate against under 18-year-olds by not allowing them to drive at all, but they lack the cognitive ability to manoeuvre a car safely. Just
I'm not sure what
age,
I'm not sure what cognitive ability means. What does cognitive ability mean? That's far too difficult a word for me. I take some statistics here. It has been shown that the elderly have three times fewer accidents, the over 70s, than the age group.
As a percentage of the number of people that drive within that category. But overall, what you see on the data, and actually the Office of National Statistics has changed the way that they report it now, but if we look at data from 2022, for example, we see a sharp increase in the number of casualties resulting from the over 75 category.
Well, are you saying then, Paul, that actually people should have to forget the bigger vehicles, get to 70 or 75, and you should have to be regularly retaking a general driving test?
I think so, and I think actually it will preserve mobility of the elderly if we can start to identify which of them are able to continue driving safely.
OK. This is police state. This is really... I am horrified to hear a respected lawyer. I mean, you're not just a self-say, you're a proper lawyer. You know, you're not a
proper lawyer.
Yeah, you know, not a chap who says he's a solicitor. You are a solicitor. You've got a firm. And you are saying that actually elderly people... And when I say elderly, I mean, you're talking about over 70. As far as I'm concerned, 70, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro twice between my 70th and 80th birthday, and I'm planning to do it again. I think the idea that you should discriminate in this way against old people so they can think, oh, my God, people like Paul Britton are saying, you're going to have another test. You know, bad enough having had one. I can actually read every single word. So it's lawyer Paul Britton and former MEP Environmental Campaign Stanley Johnson.
Stanley, to be fair.
But Stanley, you shouldn't object to being tested then if your eyesight's perfect, because you won't fall foul of it. But as a lawyer, as a respected lawyer, I can be objective. You know, I'm not 84, Stanley, and looking at this from my own perspective, I'm looking at this and it's data-driven, it's on the facts.
Well, but you've got to say, in countries like Spain, I don't know about anywhere else in the EU, but in Spain, over a certain age, you have to have and it's not out on the road test, but a sort of in a simulator sort of test.
New Zealand, Australia and parts of the United States too.
Well, I want to just read you the statistics here. A Swansea University study found that drivers aged 70 were involved in 3 to 4 times fewer accidents than men aged between 17 to 21.
You can't deny that. Maybe we should... If you want to do this to older people, Paul, maybe you need to stop people from...
Steve, this is
don't allow them to drive till they're 25.
We're targeting the 17 to 21, the least experienced group of all of the data. Look, people have got to start somewhere, and if we start saying to 17 to 21-year-olds, you can't drive, how are they going to go to work? How are they ever going to become good drivers?
Let me tell you one other thing, which this sort of conversation leads to. OK, I'm over 70. I'm actually over 80. I'm actually going to be over 90. I want to drive when I go on holiday. You find nowadays, when you ring up EasyJet or whatever, oh, no, we can't let you drive a car. I'm sorry, you can't have a package which includes driving a car because you're too old. This is real nonsense.
No, Stanley, isn't it reassuring if you went and took a test and you could prove that you were safe on the roads? Isn't it reassuring for you that you're not going to cause someone an injury or a fatality? I mean, if it were me, I would want that reassurance.
No, but that would apply to all of us, though, wouldn't it, Paul? I mean, you know, all that, by the grace of God, do we drive to and from every day without having accidents? On that logic, we should all retake our tests every 2 years.
Steve, the data doesn't support it for the other age categories. Save as maybe the 17 to 25,
well, I was right about that.
They are an exception. You know, post-40, up until 75, those categories are an all-time low of causing fatalities and casualties. So I wouldn't say it was proportionate to affect them, but I would say over 75, and I don't mean disproportionately, 3 to 5 years.
We are moving towards a police state, and this is a powerfully bad step in that direction, and it needs to be resisted. We've got to get our fingers our minds around the demography here. 70 is not old any longer. This is nonsense. There are 5 million people who are over 70 with driving licenses. You can't ask all those people to take new tests.
I've got to ask... Oh, sorry, darling, go on.
I was just going to say, we're out of time, gentlemen.
I was just going to ask Paul how old you are.
I'm 41.
Right, so in another...
Got a few more years, then.
I reckon in another 28 years, you'll be campaigning in the opposite direction.
Flip-flop side Stanley in 28 years.
I think so.
OK.
I think
well,
so.
we'll see.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
You will certainly have a view on that one at home. Should there be more driving tests for over 70s? Do you think it's a good idea? gbnews.com/your say. Let us know what you think.
I'm not taking another driving test in 19 years. I'm not.
I'd have no hope of passing my driving test, even if I had to retake it now.
No.
So I'm no fan of this.
Right, we've got the Chancellor on the show at 8:40 this morning. Do not miss that. But first, we've got Paul Coyte in just a moment, looking at the very latest sport.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Glasgow, the A8 is closed in both directions over Victoria Bridge for an investigation. In Greater Manchester, the A573 remains closed southbound from the A580 East Lancs Road at Goulburn Island to Newton Willows after a lorry overturned on Tuesday. In London, the Rotherhithe Tunnel is closed each way because of a breakdown, and the South Circular is closed off the A24 at Clapham Common after an accident. Trains have been stopped between Barnum and Horsham because of a fire near the railway, and Red Jet sailings to and from the Isle of Wight are suspended between Southampton and West Cowes because of poor weather conditions.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to breakfast. It's sports time at 7:38. Oh, sorry. I'll move that.
That's her straw.
It's a very large straw, yes.
It looks like a downpipe.
It does.
It's not a pipe, I can assure you. It is a straw, a very large one. It's sports time. Coyte's here.
Hello.
Emma Raducanu, now she's been knocked out, but I don't think we should be too mean to her because she did very well.
No, I don't either, because it seems that...
One of the best players in the world she was knocked out by.
See, I know I'm a bit of a turncoat. One minute I know I am, I understand that. 1 minute I'm saying she's finished, the next minute I'm saying she's not. Who knows where this is going to go? She was knocked out at the Miami Open by Jessica Pegula of the USA, who's number 4 in the world.
Well, there you go.
6-4, so she won the tie-break in the middle and lost the third set 6-2. She's beaten Emma Navarro in the top 10. She beat Amanda Anisimova in the top 20. She's now going to move into the top 50. Top 50, but it's the best little run that she's had since she won the US Open. So, you know what? I know it seems like we're obsessed with Emma Raducanu because I know every time she plays, I always seem to talk about her, but it's just, I find it so bizarre. All these different coaches. Now she's playing without a coach, so maybe that's the answer. I don't know. And all the injuries, it's just such an interesting situation. I don't know where it's going to go.
Isn't her dad going to coach her? Or was he coaching her, or there's something going on there?
He was involved, and I wonder whether her dad's got a lot to do with the amount of coaches that are disappearing. Who's deciding? Because is it her? She seems like a very nice young woman and seems very friendly. And is it because, no, that's not working for me, I want someone else, I want someone else? It'd be nice to know where the decisions are coming from and who's deciding to get rid of these coaches. But anyway, it hasn't been a bad run at the Miami Open, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Can we look at Arsenal? Arsenal women's?
Yeah, good result for them last night. I mean, they lost 2-0. This is in the Champions League. Lost 2-0 against Real Madrid over in Madrid last week. It was muddy. It was terrible. The conditions were awful. Arsenal had complained about it. I just said, well, the Real Madrid had to put up with it as well. But maybe they were right because they came back, got back to North London, 3-0. They beat Real Madrid. It was a brilliant performance. It really was. Alessia Russo could have had 4. She scored a brace. So they are through to the next round and will play Lyon coming up next.
Nice.
Well, should we do you want Everton?
Yes, I want this, because when they have a hot dog, they say, do you want red sauce, do you want yellow sauce?
Yes, often known as mustard in some places.
Yeah, you're ruining my pun.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Red sauce, yellow sauce, or blue sauce.
Ah, correct. Because the new stadium, which is opening at Bramley-Moore Dock in... it's obviously... in Liverpool, it's on the coast.
Well,
it's just down the road from where the old stadium was. But what they've got to do is have test events before they're allowed to open it up to a full capacity. They already had one. They had another one last week, and they're successful. And then once I believe that when they have the third test event, which is almost at capacity, then they can open up. Now, this is the food. So they're having these hot dogs, which look very tasty. Remember we had the hot dogs, didn't we, from the baseball? Do you remember we had those in?
Oh, yes.
They were very nice.
Why wasn't I in that day? That's right.
They were £9, these hot dogs, by the way. And you may wonder, why the blue sauce? So the fans were thinking, it's because of Liverpool. We couldn't possibly have red on our hot dog. So the ketchup has got to be blue. But apparently, according to Everton, because I've done my research, it's not ketchup, it's not mayo, it's blue garlic aioli.
Aioli.
What's that then?
Well, aioli is garlic mayo, basically.
It's stunning.
It's unbelievable.
It's the best condiment ever.
Well, there you go. And they've dyed it blue to go with Everton.
Good.
So there we are.
They
Very
should keep
nice.
that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so do I. I think it's an excellent idea. But does it look appetising with the blue on there?
I'd say no.
No?
I think it's all right. Yeah, I'd put more on. You need more aioli on than that.
Yeah, smother it on. There you go. It's not bad for a hot dog, is it? So that's what you can get when you go to the new Everton Stadium. We've got time for some birthdays before we finish?
Oh, yes, birthdays, please.
OK, you did very well this week, though.
I did, yes.
You've done particularly well at the birthday.
And I went first.
Would you like to go first again?
Yes.
Yes.
You can go first. Go on, then.
David Coulthard. There's David Coulthard. 13 Grand Prix. I'll give you a little background. 13 Grand Prix, Williams, McLaren, Red Bull. How old is he today?
68.
Oh, my goodness me.
54.
54? 14-year swing we've got on this is the right answer. 54. 68.
Well
Ellie.
done.
Out.
OK, I feel mean.
By the way, David, can I just say that David Coulthard, who was going to be our guest on the show tomorrow, is now not coming on.
He's cancelled his appearance.
I don't know why. Right, let's go with another one. Terry Yorath. Terry Yorath, footballer. There he's in a Spurs kit, which is always very nice to see. Played at Leeds, played at Coventry. The father of Gabby Logan. There he is, Terry Yorath. How old is Terry? Welsh international?
He's 76.
I was going to say 76. I'm going to go 78.
70. If you were going to go 76, wouldn't you just go 1 year different?
I was going to say 77, and I thought that sounded a bit petty. 77, is it?
75!
Oh!
75!
I think I won that one then.
Happy birthday, Terry. A couple of showbiz ones to end with then. How about Mariah Carey?
Ooh, Mariah Carey.
The Queen of Christmas.
The Queen of Christmas. and a very high voice. Vision of Love, writ so high, there's parts of that song only dogs can hear.
Yeah. She's older than you think. I
Is
think.
she? Go on. Well, I think she's 73, so my goodness.
She is 51.
53.
56.
Oh.
She's older than you think.
Yeah, 56 is the answer.
She
One
looks
more.
great.
Film director, actor, real legend. And you know when we talked about celebrities, about not meeting heroes? He's lovely.
Is he? Quentin Tarantino.
Very nice. Quentin Tarantino. How old is Quentin Tarantino today?
60.
He's a talented man. He's 62.
He is 62. It was a draw. Very good.
Cheers.
Very
Wait,
good
you need
game.
to have Abby.
I'll do.
Good game.
Woo!
Right.
Thank you. I enjoyed that.
Excellent, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we're going to have the papers in a minute. First, so let's get a check on the European hotspots.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms moving their way eastwards across Europe, affecting regions around the Adriatic Sea. But there is some sunshine in places. The odd shower affecting Madeira and Tenerife. But after all the heavy rain from the beginning of March, Portugal, Spain seeing a much better week with plenty of sunshine on offer. But moving our way eastwards, these are going to be where we see those heavy showers and thunderstorms affecting the Adriatic Sea coasts and also Greece. But we'll see a steady improvement as we head into next week. But the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, how fierce is the competition to become Lord Sugar's next business partner? Well, our final guest today has been in the throes of that competition.
Goodness me, yes. Liam Snellan is taking part in the current series of The Apprentice, and he worked as an electrician for 10 years, and now he's turning his hand to making comfortable yet fashionable workwear. So there you go.
Well, I just want to ask what it's like to be a contestant on The Apprentice, having been a fan of the show for years prior. Is it a bit weird?
Yeah, do you know what? I wouldn't say it's weird. I feel like you can manifest anything in life, you know, and over 10 years ago I said that I wanted to be on the show with no real business at the time and not knowing how I was going to do it. But as I said, I manifested it and I'm here and on the show.
You manifested it? How did you manifest it then? Go on.
Well, you just need to vision that something has already happened, you know, you just haven't attained it yet, so you just need to attain the frequency to achieve that thing, and that's obviously what I've done, and it's my time.
Liam, are you still on the show?
I am still on the show.
How far did you make it?
So, well, you have to wait and see.
Spoiler.
You have to wait and see. Obviously,
Could be the winner.
Yeah, could be. So we had a little bit of banter about a hot sauce. I was licking a plate, which was a bit embarrassing. So we was doing an advertisement for our hot sauce brand. We didn't actually have the bottle, so we needed to sort of think on our feet and make an advert without having the product.
How long are you in the boardroom? Obviously, it has to be sliced down to an hour, but you must be in there for a long time, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So obviously, you're in there a lot longer than what it shows. You know, it's such a small part of the show when really you're in there for like up to a couple of hours. So it's a really intense period. Like, they definitely go into all of the task and the good things and the bad things that happened, and then obviously the key highlights get shown to the public.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to Breakfast. Going through the papers in the company of former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker and GB News presenter and contributor Alex Armstrong. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Norman, let's start with tariffs on cars from overseas. Donald Trump's tariffs.
Yes, announced overnight 25% tariffs on all cars being imported into the US. Which is going to be it is deeply unpopular right across the world. I mean, there's opposition now being stated from Canada, from Mexico, from the EU, from Japan, from South Korea. And the thing about cars is that they tend not to necessarily just import cars as a whole finished product. There's a great deal of trade going on in car parts. And a lot of car parts are made in Mexico in particular, and also Canada. And that was generated by the free trade agreement between the three countries. And that's now being pulled apart. And I don't think this is very good. I mean, the EU commissioners, Ursula von der Leyen, says it's bad for business and worse for consumers. I think that's probably right. Nobody wins from tariffs in the end.
Oh, well, the American car industry might.
I don't think it does, because, first of all, you can't just reconstruct the industry overnight. And this has been, you know, there's factories all over the place, parts being made in different parts of the world. The thing is an integrated trade, and it can't be reconstructed just overnight. And I don't think it will help American business. There's a danger, in fact, they might lose out.
Well, you know, Trump did this in his first term as well. I don't know if anyone remembers, but before he was elected president, while Obama was still president, he actually said, if you know, we're going to put a tariff on anybody who's buying and selling cars from Mexico and taking the jobs away from America, building the cars in Mexico, then selling them back to British people. So this is not unprecedented for Donald Trump. In fact, I think most people saw it coming. It will be damning on our car industry, which has already been absolutely shattered in this country.
How should we respond then?
Well, we were talking about this actually a little bit more in the green room, and I think that this has got to be a wake-up call for Britain. You know, for a very long time, we've put our defence in the hands of Americans, we've put our trade in the hands of Americans. I mean, we have, no matter whether you love Donald Trump or hate Keir Starmer or vice versa, we have got to realise our nation is suffering from globalisation, and that actually what's happened is we've become a second-tier nation to the extent where the Prime Minister has put his values to one side, again, whether you like them or loathe them, to sit there next to Trump and basically try and sweeten him up. It's quite embarrassing.
So we have to make Britain great again, Norman.
We have to use what levers we've got, and one of the things we could be doing is using our soft power rather better. The Americans just pulled out Voice of America, which is their propaganda arm, if you like, around the world. The BBC World Service, which is a great part of the BBC, could be expanding itself, and that's the way we get more influence in the world. That sort of thing. Looking at the Commonwealth, it's a soft power. We got levers still. We're still in the UN Security Council. We're in the Bank of International Settlement. We're in key bits of international construct, and we should use those opportunities and those levers more than we should do.
It's being used, isn't it, with the second state visit for President Donald Trump, the unprecedented second
Well, I mean,
visit?
that was an attempt to... I mean, Trump does like Britain, which is one thing, I suppose. He likes the royal family, he's got golf courses here and so on. I mean, that's not going to be very easy, because there's going to be lots of protests, I think, when Trump comes across. A lot of MPs won't turn up to listen to him. It's not going to be an easy ride.
Alex, can we talk about the Prince of Wales?
Yes.
That's my headline of the day in the Sun.
Yeah, what a front page, hey? So this is the Prince of Wales meeting farmers at a charity event that he sponsors. I can't remember the name of the charity event. It's something to do with farmers' mental health, anyway. That's what I know for sure. And there he has met Diddley Squat star. I want to get his name right. Caleb something.
Caleb something. That's him.
I can't remember his last name.
Everyone just knows him as Caleb.
Yes. And, of course, there's an invitation now extended to the Prince of Wales to come on to... Coop, thank you. Come on to the show, Diddley Squat. And apparently he's going to do it, which is fantastic. But on top of this, we've also found out that young Prince George is a big fan of the show. So, I mean, it's really great to see that the Royals involved with this stuff, because I know this is a very, very popular programme. But apparently the advice that was given to Caleb from the Prince of Wales was that his young Prince George says he must mind his swearing on the show. So there we go.
That's
watch your language.
Prince George is watching you.
Yes.
Let's have a quick look at chocolate, Norman.
Chocolate, there's two stories here. My headline of the day, actually, Stephen, is Crime Watch UK. Crime Watch UK, because there's this thief who has removed £220 worth of cream eggs from Tesco's, and hidden them under his coat, and it's been stopped accordingly. But why he's done that, why is it so expensive? Because chocolate is surging in price. If you look at the Cadbury's bar that was £1 a year ago, it's now £1.69.
Yeah, that's a scandal.
Smuggling 200 quid of chocolate eggs.
Thanks both.
Thanks, gents. Here's the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. An unsettled day ahead across parts of the northwest. Cloudier here with outbreaks of sometimes quite heavy rain. Across central and southern parts, it could be quite a murky start with mist and fog, but it's clearing relatively quickly through the course of the morning, allowing some sunshine to develop, particularly across parts of the southeast, where it will feel quite warm and pleasant in that sunshine too. A very different story though across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland. Cloudier here with outbreaks of rain slowly edging their way southeastwards, and fairly breezy under those cloudier skies too. But where you do catch the sunshine, particularly across the southeast, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so well above average for the time of year and feeling warm in that spring sunshine. Through the course of the evening and overnight, we'll see this band of cloud and rain slowly edge its way southeastwards across the rest of the country. Once again, quite heavy at times, particularly around hilly areas, still rather blustery too around exposed coasts. So quite a wet end to the day across Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Fairly dry elsewhere across the UK, though with clearer skies, particularly across parts of the southeast, we're likely to see that mist and fog develop once again. This will soon be replaced, however, once again this band of cloud and rain continuing to skirt its way southeastwards, so turning to quite a wet start across parts of Wales, central England, and then later on into the morning across parts of the southeast. And it's still not turning too much drier behind this too, some very blustery showers following on behind across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. And this system does bring in some slightly cooler air too, so it's a good chance we could even see some snow showers across western parts of Scotland, particularly across high ground. But it's across the far northwest where we'll see the bulk of the showers, slightly drier in between. They can't rule out the odd shower here and there, and that rain may linger for a time across parts of the southeast. And with that cooler air, those temperatures dipping away slightly, so only really seeing highs of around 13, possibly 14 degrees Celsius into tomorrow, so feeling slightly cooler than today.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Glasgow, the A8 is closed each way over Victoria Bridge for an investigation. There are delays of up to 2 hours to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast after a technical problem. In Greater Manchester, the A573 remains closed southbound from the A580 East Lancs Road at Goulburn Island to Newton Le Willows after a lorry overturned on Tuesday. In London, the Rotherhithe Tunnel is closed each way because of a breakdown. In Kent, the A296 is closed eastbound along Watling Street in Dartford after an accident, and train services are suspended between Barnham and Horsham after a fire near the railway at Pulborough.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not one, but two sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound? For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're
proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Labour's spring statement leaves the economy on a knife edge.
Global instability and a gloomy growth forecast have overshadowed the Chancellor's big day.
More money in the pockets of working people. Higher living standards promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government.
Warnings: 250,000 more people could be forced into poverty as Labour supporters accuse the government of forgetting its roots.
And so we did have to make a number of difficult decisions on tax and welfare and on spending in the budget. I think you can see through this spring statement how determined I am, how determined this government is to live within the means that we set ourselves in the budget.
Well, that's as the opposition accuses the Chancellor's spring statement of breaking election promises.
She said she wouldn't cut winter fuel payment, but she did. She said she wouldn't tax farmers, but she did. And she said she would not move to more than one fiscal event a year, and she just has.
The Chancellor trying to sound positive yesterday, but today a slate of terrible front pages, and Donald Trump has just slapped a 25% tariff on cars.
Yeah, real concern that that tariff might actually put the dampeners on our economic growth. Is it going to be a huge blow to the auto industry?
They've taken so much out of our country, friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe.
A cathedral in crisis. Unless £300,000 can be raised by the end of March, Peterborough Cathedral will struggle to keep its doors open.
Peterborough Cathedral in its hour of need. The community hub could close if action isn't taken.
You never know where life is going to take you. That's model Louise Glover's motto after she found herself without a home and relying on benefits. We're going to talk to her later.
And in sport this morning, Emma Raducanu has lost to the world number 4 Jennifer Pegula in the quarterfinals of the Miami Open. Red Bull looked to drop driver Liam Lawson after just 2 races. And who are the Premier League's biggest earners and how much do they make?
Hello there, good morning. We have a mixed bag of weather today, some rain but also some warm sunshine. To find out where this will be, stay tuned and I'll have all the details.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello and this is GB News Breakfast.
So it's the day after the afternoon before and the spring statement. What do you make of it all? Lots and lots of cuts. Do you think that's a good thing? Or is it actually attacking the most vulnerable in our society? Should we see what the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, Mel Stride, has to say about it all? Good to see you this morning. Look, you've got to admit, a lot of people are looking at what happened yesterday and saying, you know, the Labour Party is now more Tory than the Tories ever were.
Well, no, I totally disagree with that. This is a government, of course, that has created its own mess by taxing and spending and borrowing and killing growth and being anti-business and talking down the economy and loading us up on debt and interest payments on that debt such that they blew all their headroom. That's what socialist governments do, I'm afraid. No, this is a mess entirely they're making. Now, on the issue of welfare, Stephen, absolutely welfare needs to be reformed, but it needs to be reformed in a principled way, in the way that we were doing when we were in office, when we actually saved £5 billion from the welfare budget, saw 450,000 fewer people going on to those long-term sickness and disability benefits. And I say principled reform, it needs to be deep, thoughtful and planned if you're to save the right amount of money and if you're to be fair to many people, many of whom will be vulnerable. And what the Labour government did yesterday was, having run out of cash and not having addressed welfare with a proper plan, scrabbled around and pulled lots of levers, and we've seen what a rushed and bodged job they have done of it.
Of course, Mr Stride, the government and Rachel Reeves would say that it was you, successive Tory governments, that created this mess. And look at any possible metric to hand. I mean, the tax burden was at the highest level since World War II. Government debt was at a 60-year high. Immigration was up. Public services, of course, were really struggling. Highest interest rates since financial crash. Corporation tax up. I mean, we can carry on. But she will say that she is simply unpicking your mess, and economic growth is a marathon and not a sprint.
So the record that she inherited actually also included the fastest growing economy in the G7, near record level of employment, near record low level of unemployment. The fact that we got inflation down from above 11%, that was imported because of the Ukraine war, down to bang on target at 2% on the day of the election. And we'd had real wages growing for 13 consecutive months. What has happened since is entirely down to what this Chancellor has done. It wasn't our choice to load up businesses with £25 billion worth of national insurance taxes to kill growth. It wasn't our choice to invent this fictitious black hole and scare the living daylights out of businesses up and down the country as to the consequence of that. It wasn't our decision to go and have huge spending and borrowing going forward, which of course was an inflationary pressure, which means interest rates staying higher for longer, bigger mortgage costs for those that have mortgages, and of course, as I said earlier, increased servicing costs on that national debt, which is the big part of what absolutely destroyed her headroom. They are all her choices. They are things that she owns, not us.
Yet not everything is her fault. I mean, because you need to look at not only what's happened, but where we're going to be going in the next few months. And in terms of that headroom, well, this statement brings it back somewhere between 10 and 14 billion pounds of headroom, I think. That could be wiped out by Donald Trump's latest tariffs, couldn't it? What should she do about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. What we're saying here is we're agreeing, I think, that the economy is not resilient enough and it's not growing enough. So we don't have the headroom in order to be able to potentially withstand various external shocks that may come our way. Now, the only reason why she's got headroom now is because she had to further squeeze on the economy and make various changes because she blew all the headroom that she had back in the autumn. So the problem is that I think the economy is fragile, and people will now be asking the question about, well, if things don't go to plan, and they may well not, it's difficult to judge, but they may well not, what happens at the budget in the autumn? And there'll be a lot of speculation now about, will there have to be additional tax rises, which gets you into this doom loop of higher taxes to try and raise revenue to cover the black hole, which in itself is going to depress the economy, and if it's applied to businesses, then it'll have further detrimental effects on growth. So they've got themselves into a terrible situation. But I cannot stress enough, Stephen, the Chancellor will say, oh, this is because of President Putin, it's because of the war, it's because of President Trump, it's because of tariffs, it's because of the Conservative Party, it's because of the legacy. The reality is, it's because of her choices that she made on coming to office.
But in terms of this tariff that we're talking about now, which 25% tariffs on all cars not made in the United States, I mean, that could cripple the British car industry. What should be done to support it at this time?
No, you're absolutely right. This could be very, very difficult indeed. We export about 100,000 vehicles to the States. They're our second largest market for car production, and many people's livelihoods depend upon it. The answer to your question, though, is to get in there with the Americans and try and get together a sensible trade deal. Now, this government was slow off the mark. They should have been in earlier. One of the reasons they weren't was, of course, when President Trump had not yet been elected president, much of the, or a number of people on the front bench of the Labour Party made various comments about him and so on, and didn't get off to the right kind of relationship from the beginning, which I think is to our detriment. But look, we've just got to work hard to try and get some deal with the Americans, I think, to try and avoid these tariffs.
Can I ask you about defence? I mean, we knew an increase in defence spending was coming. Obviously, it's been so well trailed in all of this. But 2.5%, we know the timescale on which it's happening. We know where the money is coming from. Do you unequivocally support that?
Yes. So we called for 2.5% spending on defence by 2027. The government has decided to do that, and we're pleased that they have. We have also, though, said that we should be committing to a minimum of 3% by the end of this Parliament. The government is currently saying 3% sometime in the next Parliament, but it does seem to us that increased defence spending over the next few years, over and above that committed, is going to be necessary, given the kind of geopolitical tensions there are and the importance now of Europe stepping up to the plate and getting into a position where it can do more in terms of making sure it's able to defend itself.
Are you concerned that this boost could be swallowed up by the Chagos Islands deal?
Yeah, this is ludicrous. I raised this from the dispatch box with the Chancellor yesterday. She chose not to answer my question, but I urged her to scrap this ridiculous deal that could end up costing billions of pounds that should be actually put in to our armed forces as an alternative. It is an absurdity to be giving away those islands in that way and paying for the privilege of doing so.
OK, Mel Stride, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. And we are going to be talking to the Chancellor herself later on this hour.
Thank you. Well, listening across to that was GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Good to see you this morning, Catherine. What do you make of what Mel Stride had to say?
Yes, well, of course, he said it's all of her own making, all because of choices they've made. Keen to trumpet that, you know, the last government had the fastest growing economy in the G7. Inflation had fallen dramatically, which is true. But I think worth saying more broadly that since the financial crisis and under 15 years of the Conservatives, we had a pretty stagnant economy where real wages didn't go up significantly. People didn't feel much better off. Now, Rachel Reeves has said she changed that through growth. We see these forecasts, growth forecast for this year halved, which is terrible, pretty lacklustre going forward. And it feels like, for all the promises of change, it's going to be very, very hard for Rachel Reeves to deliver. And these global factors, obviously, they're not entirely the cause of the decisions she's made, but they're making her job much, much harder.
I know you're a political expert rather than an economist, but a lot of people turn around and say, as Mel Stride was saying there, you know, where we are now, in terms of growth, because their entire economic strategy pre-election was based on growth, and we're not there. But how much of that is down to what she did in the budget last autumn?
I think some of it, obviously, they talk down Britain, they talk down the economy, they put up national insurance for employers, which is bound to have a dampening effect on wage rises and hiring. But, you know, growth is hard. Liz Truss was right to say that's what we need, but we haven't had much of it since the financial crisis, and it's not something that you can magic up easily. And I think worth saying, too, that for the choices she's made, which have upset many specific groups of people, whether it's been business, whether it's been farmers, whether it's been pensioners. The previous Conservative government cut 4p off national insurance. That was a big tax cut, which they did basically to try and get us to vote for them. It was not affordable, and they knew when they did that it was not affordable.
And, Catherine, I mean, one of the worst parts of this is the worst could still be to come. We've got all those bills going up on the 1st of April, national insurance changes coming in as well. I mean, does it look as though tax rises in the autumn could be inevitable?
I think the OBR said there was a sort of 50-50 chance that come the autumn she's going to need to put taxes up again or make more spending cuts. And I think given the global outlook, given what Donald Trump said just a few hours later, sure, we might be able to get some deal with the US, but already they're looking at scrapping this digital services tax. That's 800 million that we'd lose straight away. It's very difficult. It's very hard to see the economy getting big growth anytime soon, I think. But one little bright bit is that Angela Rayner's planning reforms, it does sound like they are going to lead to growth in time, but it's going to take, I think, a fair while.
Yeah. We've got Keir Starmer at the Elysee Palace today. Emmanuel Macron hosting this. It's the Coalition of the Willing, another meeting, isn't it, in all of that? Is that going on? I mean, it's been criticised by some key members of the White House, of course, all of this, saying that it's all just posturing.
Well, yes, we've had a lot of pretty rude comments about Europe coming out of the States recently, but, you know, they are trying. I was at the Munich Security Conference about 6 weeks ago when it all sort of kicked off following Trump's conversation on the phone with Putin and J.D. Vance sort of slating Europe. And at that time, it felt like Europe was being totally cut out of everything. America was basically going, we'll sort this with Russia. It's got nothing to do with you. And I think this is an attempt for Europe to insert itself into this, and clearly it's a war in Europe. We are part of Europe. We are going to have to help Ukraine because we don't have those security guarantees that we seem to think are so essential from the US. We still don't have them. So, you know, I think it is to be welcomed. I think in practice, of course, it's going to be very, very tricky.
OK. Catherine, good to see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, lots in there to ask the Chancellor about at 29 this morning.
Yes, don't miss that. And let us know your reaction to anything you've heard there this morning. gbnews.com/yoursay. Now, some happy news this morning. We are delighted to say that GB News Breakfast has been nominated for a Trick Award again, the third year in a row. We've won twice. We'd like to make it the triple, but we need your help to do so because it is a public vote. It's down to you, the viewers and the listeners, and that is why it means the world to us if you decide to vote for us. That's the QR code on your screen now if you'd like to vote. Or
that
you can
picture took ages for us to post for. So it's worth it. All the effort we put into that lovely photograph.
Yes. You can head to the website poll-trick.org.uk.
Unfortunately, Charlie Peters didn't spend very long posing for his picture, as you can see. But that eyebrow is raised.
Oh, he looks very inquisitive. He looks like a proper journalist.
He is a proper
journalist. With a proper journalist face on.
He's done
Charlie
that incredible
Peters.
work on uncovering all the grooming gang scandal, as you will be aware, and he's been nominated as Best News Presenter. Again, poll-trick.org.uk if you'd like to vote for Charlie.
Now let's get a check on the weather with Honor.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. An unsettled day ahead across parts of the northwest. Cloudier here with outbreaks of sometimes quite heavy rain. Across central and southern parts, it could be quite a murky start with mist and fog, but this clearing relatively quickly through the course of the morning, allowing some sunshine to develop, particularly across parts of the southeast, where it will feel quite warm and pleasant in that sunshine too. A very different story, though, across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland. Cloudier here with outbreaks of rain slowly edging their way southeastwards and fairly breezy under those cloudier skies too. But where you do catch the sunshine, particularly across the southeast, highs of 17, possibly 18 degrees Celsius, so well above average for the time of year and feeling warm in that spring sunshine. Through the course of the evening and overnight, we'll see this band of cloud and rain slowly edge its way southeastwards across the rest of the country. Once again, quite heavy at times, particularly around hilly areas, still rather blustery too around exposed coasts. So quite a wet end to the day across Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. Fairly dry elsewhere across the UK, though with clearer skies, particularly across parts of the southeast, we're likely to see that mist and fog develop once again. This will soon be replaced, however. Once again, this band of cloud and rain continuing to skirt its way southeastwards, so turning to quite a wet start across parts of Wales, central England, and then later on into the morning across parts of the southeast. And it's still not turning too much drier behind this too. Some very blustery showers following on behind across Northern Ireland and parts of Scotland. And this system does bring in some slightly cooler air too, so it's a good chance we could even see some snow showers across western parts of Scotland, particularly across high ground. But it's across the far northwest where we'll see the bulk of the showers, slightly drier in between. They can't rule out the odd shower here and there, and that rain may linger for a time across parts of the southeast. And with that cooler air, those temperatures dipping away slightly, so only really seeing highs of around 13, possibly 14 degrees Celsius into tomorrow, so feeling slightly cooler than today.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, time is running out if you want to grab our latest Great British giveaway. £17,777 in tax-free cash, plus a designer handbag and 2 designer watches. Here's how you enter.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash that you'll be able to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches, so you can style it out this spring. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck. Now, don't miss our interview with the Chancellor herself in the next 20 minutes or so. But first, let's show you these pictures. I think we're going to show you these pictures. Here we are, yes, of European leaders. They're arriving in Paris for talks on Ukraine. This is the coalition of the willing that we've heard so much about. It's after the Prime Minister said that Vladimir Putin is not serious about a ceasefire. This is GB News Breakfast with Stephen and Ellie.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Well, the end of February marks the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, and the Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer was quick to wish all Muslims Ramadan Mubarak.
Yes, he was, and the royal family also took to their Twitter feed, and they have millions of followers to mark the occasion, sending their best wishes to Muslims in the UK, Commonwealth and all around the world.
Which is all very nice, and quite right, of course, because there are many, many Muslims who are in the Commonwealth, which the royal family heads. However, what's been said for the Christians?
Zippo.
Because there's been a deafening silence from, well, the royal family, politicians and many others as Christians mark the beginning of Lent, despite the fact the King is, of course, head of the Church of England.
Yes, it's all rather disappointing. Shall we get the reaction of the former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II, Dr Gavin Ashenden? Thank you very much indeed, Gavin, for coming on. Are Christians being forgotten in this country? I am taken aback by the fact that the royal family would take to their Twitter feed, which is watched by millions of people, to celebrate the holiday of Ramadan, but no mention of Lent, no mention of Shrove Tuesday, no mention of Ash Wednesday, nothing.
Yes, it's all very odd, and it's not easy to understand, because as you quite rightly said, it's the right and courteous thing to do to wish Muslims well on what is for them a very important feast day. Why would we not want to be courteous and generous and supportive to people quite rightly pursuing their own religious devotions? But as well as two-tier policing, we appear to be having two-tier religion in this country, because, as you say, there's complete silence for the Christians, who still make up nearly 50% of the country.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Now, can President Trump persuade Vladimir Putin to end his war with Ukraine?
Well, the Prime Minister has said Russia is not serious about peace. So is Trump fighting a lost cause?
Well, to talk to us about this, we're joined by financier and political activist Bill Browder. Good to see you this morning, Mr. Browder. Do you think Putin is serious about peace?
Well, he's shown that he's not. 2 weeks ago, the Ukrainians made an unconditional, a pledge for an unconditional ceasefire for 30 days, and then everyone looked to Russia to see whether Putin would do that, and Putin rejected that. He's come back with a very conditional ceasefire based on very narrow set of variables on Black Sea shipping, and then he said that even that is going to be conditional on lifting sanctions. And so I know Vladimir Putin very well. I've been in a struggle with him, a personal struggle, for 15 years, and I can tell you that the guy doesn't negotiate. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't back down. And I think that this is all a big fantasy to think that somehow he's going to back down, and it's certainly a fantasy to think that he's going to back down if we're not putting pressure on him.
So what sort of pressure would he respond to? I mean, we've had analysts previously saying, you know, Trump can threaten further very tough sanctions all he likes, but actually for Putin and his cronies, they've just got ways around it all.
Yeah, I think your previous guests are correct. I mean, there's one economic pressure that he can do, which is if the United States wanted to, it could embargo the sale of Russian oil, and that would bring Putin to his knees. The problem with that is that Russia supplies 10% of the world's oil, and that would push up the price of oil very dramatically, and I think we don't want that in a world where we're all fighting inflation. The other thing that Trump can do, and he should do, is to double down or triple down on the supply of weapons to Ukraine. If he were to do that, and he were to allow the Ukrainians to hit targets inside of Russia, military targets inside of Russia, that would be the kind of thing which could potentially bring Putin to the table. Putin will only negotiate if there is a boot on his throat. He doesn't negotiate from strength. He would negotiate only from weakness. But we're not doing that. In fact, it's just the opposite. We're seeing the United States holding back on military aid, the United States offering inducements to Putin. Putin is just sitting there laughing at the United States right now.
Ultimately, Bill, I mean, Putin's war aims have not changed. He doesn't believe that Ukraine has the right to exist as a sovereign country.
That's absolutely correct. Putin, if you look at what he was saying before the invasion, after the invasion, during the invasion, and now, it hasn't changed one iota. And it's important for everybody to understand why Putin is doing this. It's not because he has visions about a grand Russian empire, or he's even upset about NATO. He's doing this war as a war of distraction so that the Russian people don't get mad at him, that they get mad at a foreign enemy. This is Machiavelli 101. And that there's nothing that can be offered to Vladimir Putin to give him the confidence that he would be staying in power if he were to compromise on this thing. His whole idea is he's got to be a strong man to his own people, and this war is a very important part of that, and I don't see him backing off in any way, shape, or form.
OK, Bill, it's fascinating, to be honest, slightly depressing getting your perspective, but I think a lot of people will take a lot away from that. Good to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
It is thoroughly depressing. isn't it? Really,
It is.
but this is the sort of analysis you need. We need to hear from independent people rather than just hear what the politicians are saying, because they've got their own agenda to spin on it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Do stay with us. Paul Coyte's going to be with us next as Emma Raducanu is knocked out of another tennis competition. But if you're travelling to work or school this morning, for now, here's your traffic and travel update.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to 40 minutes to Stena Line sailings between Cairnryan and Belfast after a technical problem. Delays of up to an hour, some cancelled trains between Barrow-in-Furness and Whitehaven after electrical supply problems. Greater Manchester, the A573 remains closed southbound from Goulburn Island to Newton or Willows after the lorry overturned on Tuesday. On the M1 in Leicestershire, there's a lane closed northbound. Someone's broken down between junctions 21A and 22 from Leicester North to Ashby de la Zouch. In Kent, the A296 is closed eastbound along Watling Street in Dartford after an accident, and buses replace trains between Horsham and Arundel after a fire near the railway.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Paul Coyte's here with the sport. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning,
Can
good
we
morning.
talk about Emma Raducanu, who was doing very well?
Yeah, yes, she was.
To be positive.
Yeah, well, I'd like to throw this over to Ellie, because Ellie is the...
thanks.
Emma Raducanu. Well, only because he's the most positive Emma Raducanu person in the world. So are we happy with the quarter-final?
Look, I think you should really well. And if you're going to get knocked out of a competition, if you get knocked out by one of the best players in the world, you're doing well in my book.
Fair enough. Jessica Pegula, 3 sets, quarter-final of the Miami Open. So... Emma's beaten Emma Navarro, who's in the top 10. There's Anisimova, who's in the top 20. So she's going to move into the top 50. Honestly, I just can't make my mind up where this is going to go. A couple of weeks ago, I was thinking, no, it's not going to happen. There's not going to be. But then she's played very good tennis. I think if I was asked... So if you feel free to ask me how you think this is going to go...
How do you think it's going to go, Paul?
Well, it's funny you should say that, Stephen, because I have a feeling that it's going to be... OK, she's going to be... I don't think she's going to win another major. I don't think it's going to happen. But I think it's going to be decent professional career, quarterfinals, etc. But I think those above her are just too good. Okay. And there's too many coaches. And, you know, I keep my fingers crossed for her, but I don't know.
OK, so some questions about the future of Emma Raducanu. What about questions about the future of Red Bull's Liam Lawson?
Yeah, Liam Lawson. So Liam he's 23 years old. He's from New Zealand, and it's his first season in F1. And it looks like he's going to be replaced after just 2 races.
That's harsh.
Which is really harsh. There's Liam. It is extremely tough. There's a young driver programme that they have at Red Bull, where the idea is that you start, you know, and then you get promoted. Now, Yuki Tsunoda, who is likely the one that's going to take over from him, there's been a little beef between the two of them. You know, whereas Lawson had said something about him and saying when Tsunoda was asked whether he was going to take over, and he's going, well, you know, it's my seat and blah, blah, blah. And it's just been a bit uncomfortable. Now, it's not been guaranteed yet, but Christian Horner looks like he's going to 2 races in. It's tough, isn't it?
It's harsh.
But the thing is, you've got to be great from the start, but there's no room to grow. Surely, if you're going to be great, you've got to start and then grow.
Yeah.
But maybe there's too much money involved and it's all too important and they're not going to give anybody the chance. But there you have it. Looks like that'll be it.
Now, should we depress ourselves or inspire ourselves with the Premier League rich list?
Well, we can inspire ourselves hoping that we're going to become professional footballers.
Yes.
Because I still haven't...
There's time yet.
I haven't let go of that just yet.
No.
And if you are... This is L'Équipe, which is the sporting paper in France. They've worked this out. Erling Haaland... And I will put this in pounds because euros. Erling Haaland, £537,000 a week. And that's basic pay. So then you would get bonuses on top of that. And then there's a huge amount of money is going to be in endorsements. He's a rich boy. He's a very rich boy.
Well, cheer ourselves up. Think of his tax bill.
Well, that's true.
His tax bill is going to be a lot of money.
Can you imagine? That would make your eyes water, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You've got
be paid about £1 million a month in tax.
Kevin De Bruyne is second, and he's probably going to have his last season at Manchester City on 432, 432,000. And then managers, who would you think would be the top? Pep?
Yes, probably.
Well, that's right. 416,000 a week. Mikel Arteta of Arsenal. And then David Moyes at Everton, 257,000.
I'm surprised that David Moyes being so high up.
A lot of people are. Yeah, David Moyes. But there we are. And one more little bit. I've got a little bit of golf for you. You like this TGL golf. Have a look. This is the indoor golf that was put together by Tiger Woods and by Rory McIlroy. And I think it's been a huge success. Now, it was won by Atlanta. This is Billy Horschel for the winning putt. Now, have a look at this. Now, watch this ball move. It goes out that way, and then it swings out that way and goes back in. And look at the celebrations. It's in the hole.
That's one heck of a shot.
That's what you want. You want celebrations like that. Throwing the hat, throwing the club. Maybe the club's not a good idea because it can take someone out, but that's not the point. But there we are, Atlanta, who won the TGL golf competition. I would love to see that come over here.
Yeah.
Because I think that indoor golf thing has got a future. Very clever.
Yeah. Very good.
Thanks, Queety.
All right, Paul, thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Now, do stay with us. We're going to be talking to the Chancellor herself in just a few moments' time after her spring statement yesterday.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast. Heavy showers and thunderstorms moving their way eastwards across Europe, affecting regions around the Adriatic Sea, but there is some sunshine in places. The odd shower affecting Madeira and Tenerife, but after all the heavy rain from the beginning of March, Portugal, Spain seeing a much better week with plenty of sunshine on offer. But moving our way eastwards, these are going to be where we see those heavy showers and thunderstorms affecting the Adriatic Sea coasts and also Greece. But we'll see a steady improvement as we head into next week, but the best of the temperatures across Tenerife.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
SpaceX latest Starship exploded over the Caribbean Sea.
I was wondering where it'd gone.
Yeah, debris could be seen falling back to Earth moments after the Starship launched down from Boca Chica, Texas. The rocket, of course, was unmanned. This was the 8th test flight, and it was only meant to be in the air for an hour. But, importantly, the booster for this rocket was caught with those Mechazilla chopsticks in an impressive display, the third time that's happened.
Those Mechazilla chopsticks? This is Elon Musk's spaceship, isn't it?
Tell.
Starship, sorry.
Yeah.
Planetary scientist Andy Lound could tell us more about this. Andy, so was this a disaster, or is this just a little obstacle to success?
Yeah, good morning. Par for the course, really. This is what kind of good afternoon. Par for the course as these things go on. The whole point of the tests, he's going to do 25 tests this year alone. And the interesting thing about this is you actually see the staging of it, where you've got the first stage, the booster, and then the second section, which is the ginormous rocket, which actually lifts off. The first stage, they seem to have got that cinched now, how it works quite well, coming back and landing in the chopsticks, absolutely breathtaking. The second stage, the Starship, was actually the new version of it, which they're testing out completely. And unfortunately, the first testing, the last test failed, and that was due to, it looks like, some frequency issues, which caused a frequency to go too high, which caused damage to the piping, which led to a fuel leak and a fire, which led to destruction. They made a lot of modifications, which led to test 8. And unfortunately, though, it has failed again. So they need to have a look at exactly what the issues are which are causing these failures.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, we're just waiting for the Chancellor to get mic'd up and ready to go, and as we do that, let's talk to former Lib Dem Minister Norman Baker and GB News presenter Alex Armstrong, who are taking us through the papers. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
Alex, let's start with the Mail. Should we? Migration is going to fall sharply.
Yes. Well, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it was a Tory policy, because it is. So what the OBR are saying is that migration, whilst it is still going to go up over the decade, will take a sharp decline over the next few years. Projections falling from 728,000 in mid-2024 to down to 250,000 by mid-2027. So it will rebound slightly, but they're saying this is all a result of tightening visa policies under Rishi Sunak's government. So Keir Starmer will likely take credit for this. However, who knows? That policy could very well change under the Labour Party. However, at the moment, migration is expected to fall in that period of time, and that will be down to the Conservative Party's tightening of visa controls, which I think is important for us to acknowledge, because I wonder, had we not changed this, whether migration would still be running away from us under the Labour Party.
Well, migration, of course, went through a big increase after Brexit. That's what happened. But we have to look at not just the numbers, but the kind of migration, because if it falls, is it the right people who are being removed or not coming? Or are we actually preventing people who are essential for the economy from entering the country? So
why would we do that?
Well, we wouldn't do it deliberately, but that might be one of the consequences. So we have to make sure we don't just look at numbers, but we look at the right people migrating rather than the wrong people.
I completely agree. But I also wonder, you know, a lot of governments see GDP rise when there's mass migration as well, and obviously not looking specifically at GDP per capita, which has gone down with mass migration. And I do wonder whether the Labour government will look at supplanting a lot of that lost workforce that we're going to have with more immigrants. I suspect they probably will, if I'm being honest.
Norman, you've got a story in The Guardian, haven't you, on the issue of freedom of speech at our universities?
Yes, I feel quite strongly about this, not least of all because Sussex is my local university in my hometown from Lewis, and also the person at the centre of this, Professor Kathleen Stock, is someone I vaguely know as one of my constituents at one point. Now, this is because Sussex has been fined £585,000 as a consequence of not allowing free speech and academic freedom to prosper. And I think that's exactly right, to be honest with you. If you can't say what you think at university, where can you say what you think? And it's indefensible, I think. And they say, well, the university apparently is saying, well, you know, to allow freedom of speech is to allow hate speech. No, it isn't, because there are laws in place already for those extreme bits of language. People can be picked up on that. But I don't think what Kathleen Stock was saying was in any way improper.
No, we're seeing a lot of this on university campuses up and down the country. People being, you know, not allowed to speak, essentially. And I think it's the one place you should be allowed to have your views challenged. And if we can't do that at that age, then we're going to really fail them coming into the real world, where they are going to have their views challenged in the workplace and other places. We're breeding a society of young people who only want to hear an echo chamber, which is very dangerous for society.
We kind of have a situation where people say, this person may offend me, therefore they must be shut up. That cannot be right.
No, I agree. I agree. You've got to be able to debate, especially at university. Can we talk about the Spice Girls?
Yes.
We really must talk about the Spice Girls.
We really must.
Spice Up Your Life is one of my favourite songs, Alex.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm not a massive Spice Girls fan myself, but I do love this song. I do love this. It's a great song, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's iconic British song. Spice Up Your Life. If you haven't heard it before, I don't know where you've been. But so supposedly there is some censorship happening in this song specifically, and I'll pull out the words because I've been given a list of the lyrics here as well. As if I need
Your go-to karaoke song.
But perhaps Ellie help me do justice. But there's a line here that says, "Hold tight." Go on, Ellie, sing it for me. Hold tight. Yellow man in Timbuktu. Colour for both me.
In Timbuktu.
There you go. Colour for both me and you.
So Yellow Man is...
Yes. Can't say Yellow Man. So they're apparently now being told to remove the lyric and replace it with, let me just get this right, replace it with happy people instead.
Oh, God.
Yes. I mean, as if it was really that offensive.
But it's been edited out already on BBC playlist.
Yes. This is ridiculous. Do you know, I run 2 music shows a week on my local FM station, quick advert for Sea Haven FM, and I wanted to play a song called Melting Pot by Blue Mink, if any of your listeners and viewers know that. And the whole song is about racial harmony. It's about pulling people together and the world working together. It's a really positive song. But it's now been banned by Ofcom because it includes one word to describe, well, that was used in the past to refer to Chinese people, which people can imagine what it was.
Yeah.
And you should not pull a song for that. If you have to do anything, you should contextualise it by saying, here's a song from 1969, it involves language we didn't use now, but let's play it because it's a proper song that promotes harmony. Why don't we do that?
And this song, Spice Up Your Life, is as well about that sort of harmony and everyone coming together and celebrating things. The worry I have is that if we have to censor things, and it's like this decolonialisation of Shakespeare, we're actually forgetting why those stories were told in that way that they were at the time, and we're whitewashing them. We're actually not doing a justice to look back at society as it was at the time, and I think it's another very, very dangerous road to go down.
It's like removing statues. You don't remove statutes, in my view. What you do is you contextualise them and put something inside and say, this is what this person did, we wouldn't do it now, but this person also did this, which was worthwhile having.
Exactly.
Let's not remove things, let's contextualise them.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It's crazy. I mean, there's lots of other lyrics in this I'd ban, but I wouldn't ban that one.
You wouldn't ban that one. No.
Flamenco lambada, but hip-hop is harder. We moonwalk the foxtrot, the polka, the salsa.
Shake it, shake it, shake it. All right. All right.
Yeah. Sounds like a spring statement. Sorry, being unfair.
Very bizarre. Very bizarre.
Norman, let's have a look at the time, shall we? Mayor's home repairs force closure of only road through small town.
I love this story. Well done, the Times, for picking this up. The only road to the smallest town in Britain is to shut for almost 6 months. Why? So repairs can be carried out to the Mayor's £1 million house. And the busy route through Fordwich on the outskirts of Canterbury will close between April and September to allow for, quote, essential work on the Grade 2 listed building. Well,
what do you do if it needs doing, though? What do you
I mean, you don't shut a road for 6 months to repair a building, for goodness sake. I mean, I don't know when he's up for election, but I wouldn't reckon there's chance to get re-elected.
Yeah. But isn't it damning that it takes 6 months? I think, if anything, if you were going to pull anything out of this story, 6 months to repair a road.
Well, it's not repairing a road, it's repairing a house.
Sorry, repairing the house.
I don't even know why the road has to shut.
Incredible.
I mean, why can't they have, single line working or something? Have they got to do something?
Well, you think there'd be something you could do.
This is County Council. Come and explain why you want to shut a road for 6 months.
Yeah.
6 months is such a long time as well, isn't it? It's not
and it will be longer than that as well, won't it? Let's be real.
It's just
it will be.
What people are going to do around there.
It'll be a year.
They've got massive, massive diversions, 7-mile diversions to get from A to B now as a consequence of this. It's terrible.
Mind you, it's a beautiful house.
Well,
I bet it would be.
Won't be selling anytime soon, will it?
Right. I just want to keep you updated because we're changing our timing slightly because the Chancellor's running late. So we've got 2 minutes left, and then we're going to take a short break. Then hopefully have the Chancellor when we get back, which will be just before 9 o'clock. But anyway, we've just got time for one more story from Alex, and this is Prince Harry. All this fuss over Centre Barley, his charity, which he's now resigned from.
Yeah, it's a really odd one because we obviously don't know the exact details as to why this fallout has taken place. There's lots of speculation, but this latest attack is thinly guised against Harry, and this is coming from the chairperson of the charity, the chairwoman, Dr. Chanduka, I believe, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Now, she's posted this statement on social media. Listen to this, right? There are people in this world who behave as though they are above the law and mistreat people, and then they play the victim card and use the very press they disdain to harm people who have the courage to challenge their conduct. Who does that sound like she's going after? I mean, she doesn't have to say his name, but it's obviously targeted at Prince Harry. And I think for someone who has worked so closely with him to go that far...
It's funny, because there's another prince. Is Prince of Lesotho?
Yes.
Yeah. Who's actually gone as well.
Yes, that's right.
In solidarity with Harry. So, I mean, it's not as clear-cut as just Harry.
No.
No, and you've got to bear in mind as well that the Daily Mail has got a kind of vendetta against Prince Harry because of all the legal cases which have been taking place. So they're not exactly a neutral reporting of the story.
But that victim complex is an accusation that's been levelled at him before, and she will know that.
Well, that's exactly right. The other thing I would say, I think, is that Harry looks to me having a rough time. You know, Meghan's running the show, isn't she, in terms of her Netflix programmes and everything else, and Harry looks like an add-on.
Yeah, well, he does a little bit at the moment, but there's lots more to this story. We need to get to the bottom of it. What on earth is going on?
Yeah, there's just lots of name calling and quite public displays of displeasure between the two here, and it's obviously quite uncomfortable because at the end of the day, this is about people, suffering.
It's HIV and AIDS charity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's really what's being lost here. Yeah, Diana's legacy.
Yeah, it's
very
such
sad.
a mess.
We're down to our last 10 seconds before we could talk to the Chancellor in a couple of minutes. Norman can sing us out with the Spice Girls.
Oh no, Ellie should do that.
Maybe not. All right, see you in a minute.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
The latest GB News Travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M1 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed southbound where someone's broken down between junctions 41 and 40 towards Wakefield. In Greater Manchester, the A573 remains closed southbound from Goulburn Island to Newton Willows after a lorry overturned on Tuesday. On the M67 in Greater Manchester, there are westbound queues towards junction 1A at Ashton-under-Lyne after an accident. The queues back to junction 3 at Hyde. In Kent, the A296 is closed eastbound along Watling Street in Dartford after an accident, and buses replaced trains between Horsham and Arundel after a fire near the railway line at Polborough. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's just 2 weeks left to see how you could be a spring winner, as we have an incredible £17,777 in tax-free cash to be won. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also give you the latest Mulberry handbag and not one, but 2 sought-after designer watches. Make sure you don't miss out, as lines close on the 4th of April. For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Labour's spring statement leaves the economy on a knife edge.
Global instability and a gloomy growth forecast overshadow the Chancellor's big day.
More money in the pockets of working people. Higher living standards promised by this Labour government, delivered by this Labour government.
Warnings 250,000 more people could be forced into poverty as Labour supporters accuse the government of forgetting its roots.
And so we did have to make a number of difficult decisions on tax and welfare and on spending in the budget. I think you can see through this spring statement how determined I am, how determined this government is to live within the means that we set ourselves in the budget.
Well, that's as the opposition accuses the Chancellor's spring statement of breaking election promises.
The Chancellor will say, oh, this is because of President Putin, it's because of the war, it's because of President Trump, it's because of tariffs, it's because of the Conservative Party, it's because of the legacy. The reality is, it's because of her choices that she made on coming to office.
President Trump could slam the brakes on our economic growth as he announces a 25% levy on all vehicles not made in the States. It's a huge blow to our car industry.
They've taken so much out of our country. Friend and foe, and frankly, friend has been oftentimes much worse than foe.
You never know where life will take you. That's model Louise Glover's motto after she found herself without a home and relying on benefits. She's going to be with us later on in the programme telling her story.
Hello there, good morning. We have a mixed bag of weather today, some rain, but also some warm sunshine. To find out where this will be, stay tuned and I'll have all the details.
Good morning, it is 8:57. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, we're just waiting for the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to get to our position so we can chat to her about this spring statement yesterday. But, of course, following all the events yesterday was our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Was there anything in the statement that we didn't expect? Because it was so well-trailed.
I don't think there was very much, to be honest. One thing that hasn't been picked up much at all, though, is a sort of real crackdown on fraud, financial fraud, which will be welcomed. That sort of wasn't given much airtime at all by Rachel Reeves, but I was just struck that she really, really tried very hard to sound an upbeat, positive tone. She tried to be smiley, she tried to be optimistic, but, you know, when you look at the front pages today, they are universally awful for the Chancellor, whether it's left-leaning, right-leaning, whatever. They're either accusing her of balancing the books on the backs of the poor, in the case of left-leaning papers, or planning more tax rises come the autumn. It's really pretty dreadful. Now, sure, the economic position is very difficult. It was very difficult under the Conservatives. It still is. And it's been made much more complicated, of course, by Donald Trump and these, you know, just hours after he announced these 25% tariffs on cars. The government's working really, really hard in advance of next Wednesday's Liberation Day, as Trump calls it, when he's pledging to bring on tariffs of all sorts of things globally. But, you know, it's a really difficult time, and for a government that promised change and promised growth, they need for people by the end of this Parliament to feel significantly better off. I don't think at the moment there's any sign of that.
Yeah, and there is a sense that the worst is still yet to come, Catherine. I mean, as you say, you've alluded to there, but April, you've got all of these bills going up, you know, council and water and energy. National insurance rises haven't even come in yet, have they?
No, they haven't. And already businesses are saying, you know, this is going to make it more expensive for us. We're going to be able to hire fewer people. It's going to squeeze, you know, make our costs worse. So they've managed to upset lots of groups of people, businesses, the farmers, pensioners, because they've been forced, they say, to find money here, there and everywhere. And of course, the Tories are going, this is all your fault. But the Conservatives did cut 4p off national insurance before the last election. And this government pledged that they wouldn't put up income tax, national insurance, VAT on people. So it sort of laid a bit of an elephant trap for them, and it's made it very, very difficult. But of course, you know, we hear again and again, don't we, about that £22 billion black hole that they found when they came in. But, you know, some of that was because of choices that the government made, for example, to give big raises to train drivers.
But that's part of the problem with the trust issue. There's been a trust issue in government for a long time, I mean, long before this government. However, we hear a lot about the £22 billion black hole, and yet we have so many people come on the show and say there wasn't one. And you're left wondering, what do I believe anymore? Do I believe it when they say it? Do I not believe it?
Yeah, it's a real problem. And the Institute for Fiscal Studies, before the last election, accused both Labour and Conservatives of a conspiracy of silence. They basically said whoever is in charge is going to have to make really, really difficult decisions. They're either going to have to put up taxes or cut spending. Nobody wanted to say it before the election, but that was the fact of the matter.
But bearing that in mind, why on earth would the government in waiting pledge to not put up those three key taxes, which has boxed them into such a corner now where they're having to do everything but?
Well, very simply, because then the Tories would use that as an attack line. Labour are going to put your taxes up. I mean, Rishi Sunak said, sure as night is day, Labour will put your taxes up, because that's what Labour governments traditionally do. So they didn't want to frighten people into not voting for them. Now, you could argue that given the polls, given the level of discontent with the Conservatives and how people wanted shot at them after 14 years, that they could have levelled and said, look, we will have to put tax rises. But they obviously didn't want to take that chance. But it's led to all sorts of very, very difficult decisions and lots of individual groups being upset. And, of course, the welfare budget, we know it's out of control. We know the Tories wanted to tackle it, but now they've made these choices, and it looks to some like they're doing this to make their numbers add up rather than it being a sort of positive choice to help people get back to work.
But how is all of this going down with their backbenchers, and how is all of this going down with their base? You alluded to the newspaper front pages this morning, didn't you? But I mean, looking at the Mirror and the Guardian, I'm most struck by Reeves accused of balancing the books at the expense of the poor. And we were talking to James Mathewson earlier, a former Labour spokesperson, often on this channel defending the government, who essentially says, now, I can't defend the indefensible. He's written to Rachel Reeves about her welfare cuts. I mean, have they forgotten their roots here, this Labour government?
Well, it's going down badly with lots of Labour MPs, potentially about 3 dozen, deeply unhappy. You know, when this comes to a vote, there may well be a rebellion. And the government say they're having to do lots of things that you wouldn't expect from a Labour government, you know, taking away money from pensioners, farmers. They haven't, you know, the 2-child benefit cap that is still remaining. All these decisions are now the welfare cuts. So, I mean, some people like Richard Berg and Diane Abbott have come out directly and said, you know, this is not what Labour are supposed to be doing.
OK, Catherine, don't go anywhere. We're still waiting for the Chancellor. But in the meantime, and no disrespect, she's certainly not second best to us, but we're going to talk to the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Daisy Cooper. Good morning to you, Daisy. It's lovely to see you, as always. Look,
good morning.
What do you make of all of this? I mean, you traditionally, the Lib Dems traditionally fall somewhere in between the Labour Party and the Tory Party. It's very difficult to distinguish between the two at the moment, so I'm fascinated to work out what you think of the Spring Statement and what you would object to.
Well, look, I think the country is crying out for change, and yesterday's Spring Statement was a really big missed opportunity to deliver the change that everybody has been promised. We know that the growth forecast has been halved and that it could be wiped out altogether with Donald Trump's tariffs. But what we're deeply concerned about is that it appears as though the government is going to pursue cuts to disabled people and their carers, whilst potentially at the same time not ruling out giving a tax cut to Elon Musk and other billionaire tech barons. And we think that if the government goes ahead with that, then they're really genuinely at risk of losing their moral compass.
So you're saying that Rachel Reeves instead should have been taxing the super rich?
So we Liberal Democrats have said for a long time that there are big corporations that are making billions of pounds in profits, and it's those corporations that the government should be going after. So we think they should reverse the tax cuts that the Conservatives gave to the big banks. We think they should be increasing taxes on the big tech companies, on the big online gambling companies as well. They could be reforming capital gains tax to bring it down for most people, but to put it up for the 0.1% richest people. There are a number of ways in which the government could be raising revenue in a fairer way without a damaging jobs tax or putting further taxes on struggling families.
How does that help growth in our economy, though, which obviously is the vital point here?
Well, first of all, if you did raise this revenue in a fairer way, you could scrap the jobs tax, and the jobs tax is undermining growth. But at the same time, we Liberal Democrats have said we do need to get growth back into our economy, and the easiest, best, fastest way of doing that is to have a better trading relationship with our closest trading partners in Europe. And so we do want to see the government talking about renegotiating that trade deal, getting rid of the red tape, the 2 billion pieces of paperwork that have had to be filled in by businesses since Brexit. The government could be renegotiating that right now and developing a bespoke customs union that works for British businesses and get that in place by 2030 at the latest.
OK, Daisy Cooper, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Right, we are very pleased to say the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, is ready to talk to us. Good morning to you, Chancellor. I was quite struck by the fact that you said Labour is delivering higher living standards for the people of this country. In what way is that happening?
The OBR forecast yesterday shows that the real household disposable income per person will be £500 greater at the end of the Parliament compared with the plans that I inherited. And obviously the last Parliament was the worst on record for living standards, and the OBR confirmed yesterday that real household disposable income will increase in every year of this Parliament. I recognise that the cost of living crisis continues to bite. I'm not complacent about the challenges that families face with their finance. But for the last few months, wages have been rising at about twice the rate of inflation, and that is welcome news after the double-digit inflation that was inflicted upon us in the last Parliament.
You're a government going for growth. That has been your clear message. But you stood on your feet yesterday and admitted that the growth forecast had been halved. But it's not your fault. You blamed Liz Truss and her mini-budget, the Conservative inheritance, the changing world and global insecurity. Why do you seem to want to blame everyone and everything but yourself? Do you not take any responsibility for the political decisions that you have made and the consequences of the budget that you laid out in October?
Well, global growth has been revised down, and I think people can see around us that the world is changing and Britain is not immune from some of those pressures. But in every other year, the OBR have revised up their growth forecast and say that by the end of the Parliament, the economy will be bigger than they previously envisaged. So if you take that in the round, that is an economy that is growing. The economy is forecast still to grow more this year than it did last year. Am I satisfied with the numbers? No, of course I'm not. I want to go further and faster to grow the economy, which is why we took the planning and infrastructure bill to Parliament this week. It got through its second reading. That will enable us to build the homes, the infrastructure that our country needs. The pensions bill next month to improve our capital markets, the regulatory reform to make it easier to get things done in Britain. So there is much that we are doing, much that we have already done. And the Office of Budget Responsibility did say yesterday that the planning reforms that we've already brought in will make our economy bigger and will bring in more tax revenue, which is much needed to fund our public services, particularly our NHS, but also to make sure that we've got money for defence, which is obviously so crucial at these challenging times.
Yes, but the entire growth process is going to be built on the housing sector, isn't it? Which is problematic. I mean, it's all your chickens, all your eggs in one basket, at a time when, on the 1st of April, of course, we see this new national insurance for employers rise coming in, which a lot of small businesses say is going to cripple them and certainly stop them hiring new people.
The Office of Budget Responsibility forecasts that house building will reach a 40-year high, and that's very good news for young families and people who want to get on the housing ladder. But home ownership has been falling in these last few years. So getting houses built and actually training up young people to work in the construction industry with the 60,000 additional training places that we announced at the weekend will make a big difference, not just to get the houses built, but also to get good jobs for young people, paying decent wages. And if you get those skills in the construction sector, you're never going to be out of work. You're going to have a good job and security and prosperity for your family. So the plans that we have are beginning to bear fruit. And look, on the national insurance increase, the smallest businesses are exempt. If you employ, for example, 4 people at the national living wage, you won't pay any national insurance whatsoever. But I do recognise that any tax change will have consequences, but the alternative was to leave the public finances in a precarious position and not put the money into the NHS. And as a result of the changes we've made, we have managed for 5 months in a row now to bring down NHS waiting lists with an additional 2 million appointments in just the first 8.5 months of this Labour government. So we are delivering the change that we promised on public services without increasing the taxes that working people pay. But of course we've got to do more to kickstart growth in our economy. It was never possible to turn things around overnight, but I do believe we are beginning to move in the right direction.
Well, you mentioned that growth that has been forecasted by the OBR, but towards the end of your government, potential, though, that could be wiped out by President Trump's tariffs. How are you going to be responding to those?
Well, since our Prime Minister Keir Starmer went to the White House to meet President Donald Trump a few weeks ago, there have been intense talks going on between our two countries on an economic agreement, and those talks are in a crucial stage at the moment, ahead of the increase in tariffs that the US President has planned for next week. So we are working hard to secure a good deal for Britain, and we've got a few more days to do that.
a final point. I know you've been confronted with this before, but it's got to be addressed, hasn't it? We're talking to a former Home Affairs Minister this morning who said you're the weakest link in Cabinet. How do you change that?
Well, the Cabinet are working together on our plan for change. I'm tasked with growing the economy, and the OBR forecast that the economy will be bigger in this Parliament than it previously would have been. But the changes we've made to secure our public finances also mean record investment going into our NHS, which has enabled us to bring down waiting lists. The money that's going into schools is enabling us to roll out free breakfast clubs in all primary schools. We've found £2.2 billion for defence next year, taking defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, something the Conservatives promised but never delivered. So by securing our public finances, by making some of those difficult decisions on tax, welfare and on spending, we are able to invest in the things that I believe are our nation's priorities, and we'll get on continuing to do that job.
Chancellor, we're out of time with you, I'm afraid, this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's fascinating. It's whether I'd love to know what you think. Do you agree with what the Chancellor is doing, or not? I mean, certainly on things like reforming welfare, cutting a lot of benefits. Is that something you would welcome? A lot of people say it has to be done. The welfare bill is climbing and climbing and climbing. It cannot continue.
Yeah. Well, it's something that the Tories were looking to do, weren't they? If they were to win in July, so they must be looking at that with some sense of relief, thinking, well, at least that's done for us. What do you think? It's
whether all this will lead to growth somewhere down the line. She seems determined that it is. By the end of the Parliament, we'll be in a much, much better position. A lot of experts saying they can't see it at the moment. I don't know. It's very, very difficult. Who'd want that job?
Yeah, well, it's a tough job, that's true. gbnews.com/yours say. Let us know what you think on that. Just time to tell you about the Great British Giveaway. You can grab 2 designer watches, a designer handbag and £17,777 in tax-free cash. It's all up for grabs. Here's everything you need to know.
You could have £17,777 in tax-free cash to play with this spring. Cash to spend on anything you like. And if that wasn't enough, we're also going to give you not 1, but 2 sought-after designer watches and the latest Mulberry handbag. How would winning that sound?
Oh my God, that's brilliant news.
For another chance to win the lot, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB12 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 4th of April. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come, we're going to meet the woman who's opening up about her experience with homelessness and how welfare cuts could impact her. That's next.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here We do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Now, homelessness is a very odd thing because we have a view of it, don't we? But actually, it can affect, frankly, anybody, and that's the shocker when it comes to it. So let's meet someone who models, was a very big model, still modelling, Louise Glover, who rose to a lot of success, but has now found herself with nowhere really to live. And she joins us now. Good to see you this morning.
Hello, good to see you.
What has gone on? What has happened that's landed you in this position?
It all started through the pandemic. My business as a personal trainer sort of dwindled its death, basically. As you can imagine, a lot of people lost their small businesses as such. And then I've come out of it and I've tried to keep going with that. So then I started to do a bit of dog walking and then it was seasonal with the PT and then I was going through phases. And then I started doing hostess event work through the summer, like the festivals, events. So I've always sort of resourceful and trying to make things work. And then was last year that the landlord rose, the prices rose, and then I was just like, I can't, afford. It was just overnight. It went from 550 to 750.
Oh. Yeah.
And he was going to move his friend in who's going through divorce, so it sort of was like, oh, okay. And I didn't have a proper tenancy agreement as such, so I think that's, where it's messed me up a little bit there.
So what are you doing now? Where are you sleeping?
So in the summer I was in my tent and I found different campsites where you just pay £20 or £15 per night. You get access to a toilet, showers and cold water, running water, so wash or whatever. And so I did that, and then come the 1st of November they all closed when the clocks changed. So then I was trying to push more dog sits. So I managed to get a few back-to-back dog sits. I got a couple of house sits, which was for a few friends who was away. And then couch surfing, and I found myself in my car a couple of times because a few people were saying stay at theirs, then they let me down. I really struggled relying on people. So it's just been a continuation. And then I have found places to rent. I moved in for 5 days to one place, and then once I paid the money, I rang the landlord straight away going, nothing's working. Yeah. It's like living in a cave. There's no heating, there's no lights, there's no hot water or anything, so I had to move straight out. And
I mean, this is the thing, though. A lot of people sometimes think if someone is homeless, they're not trying for work, or I mean, you clearly have been,
yes,
but just not getting enough to actually be able
to
fund what's so expensive.
When you're self-employed, anyone who's self-employed will understand me that it's got its moments of being busy and quieter, and I think as well, where I've not been in Windsor, where I was living for 6 years, that it's put me in a predicament of losing a lot of my clients that I walk the dogs, because then I'm staying in places like Guildford and Oxford and Norfolk just to sort of get by. So then I'm not in my area, so I've lost all my dog walking clients.
Do you feel, and have you experienced that stigma of being homeless and not having anywhere to call home?
Yes, I definitely have. I felt it through losing friends. I've realised who my true people are, I would say. It's crazy how humanity still exists. More recently than not, I put a post out saying I didn't have anywhere to go one of the nights. And I was in the council the next day and I needed to be in Windsor because the council were nearby. And a couple of people reached out that I didn't even know, a couple, and I stayed at theirs. And they even gave me a warm meal. So humanity does exist. And but where's my friends in all this, you know?
Yeah.
A few friends have stepped up a little bit more now and realised this is, you know, become a problem. When they've seen me and actually spoke to me properly and realised this is what I'm going through, they've helped me and let me stay on the sofa or, you know, but it's all temporary.
And just briefly, what about charities in all of this? Are they able to help?
I don't want to name names, but well, Crisis and Shelter I've just gone around in circles with. I haven't got any direct help so much. Not been able to get through to anyone. I've wrote to them, I've emailed them, I've Instagrammed them. But the only charity that has helped me, and it's a kind of an unusual one, is Dogs Trust.
Oh, right.
Because I walk dogs, I've been in contact with them to help the homeless dogs get rehomed. I was supporting them. And then all of a sudden they've pulled me in and said, look, you should come down to the Newbury Dogs Trust in Berkshire and we'll have a chat about, we can support you, we have this together through homelessness. Although I don't have my own dog, I'm helping promote the dogs to get out the shelters that have been there the longest.
And dogs are such a comfort as well.
They are.
Aren't they?
And they've been so supportive in what the criteria is with helping people who are homeless with dogs. So they, you know.
Well, look, I think it's so brave of you to talk about it, and obviously we wish you all the very best moving forward. Keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you. I hope
Louise,
you get
really
sorted.
good to see you.
Thank Lovely to meet you. Now, Andrew Pearce and Beverly Turner are here to tell us all about Britain's Newsroom, which is coming up at 9:30. Morning, you two.
Morning, morning. I'm very interested in listening to that, Louise. Fascinating, isn't it? As somebody that has three
and best of
young
luck to
people.
Louise.
Yeah. Now, what are we talking about? Well, obviously, we're discussing the fallout from the spring statement yesterday, the pros and cons.
And I'm fascinated as an old newspaper man. Look at this headline on the front of the Labour Party supporting Daily Mirror, balancing the books on the backs of the poor. Yeah. I don't recall such a universal chorus of criticism on our front pages for a financial statement by any chancellor of any political hue. It's extraordinary.
Looking at her talking to you then, Rachel Reeves, the first time I've actually started to feel sorry for her.
I don't.
Out of the depths?
She looked exhausted, beaten up emotionally.
Out of her depth in a puddle.
Yeah, we'll tell you everything we think between our midday.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. An unsettled day ahead across parts of the northwest. Cloudier here with outbreaks of sometimes quite heavy rain. Across central and southern parts, it could be quite a murky start with mist and fog, but it's clearing relatively quickly through the course of the morning, allowing some sunshine to develop, particularly across parts of the southeast, where it will feel quite warm and pleasant in that sunshine too. A very different story, though.